Chapter 62. After listening to Master Xuanyuan's explanation, Lu Ping thought about it in private. His other 5 bloodlines were of the wood element, the wind element, and the ice element, so he did not have to worry about not having a suitable technique. However, after reaching the blood condensation realm, the changes in his bloodline made Lu Ping hesitate. His foundation bloodline devoured everything without leaving a trace, even though his turtle bloodline was also of the water element. What's more, Lu Ping had always focused on building a solid foundation and pursuing a strong arcane energy. The word pure was often linked to the word thick in his cultivation. Pure and thick was what he pursued. Although it would be difficult and slow for him to cultivate, if he could achieve something in the field of alchemy, he wouldn't have to worry about the slow progress. Thinking about this, Lu Ping made up his mind. He handed over another 10 spirit stones and said, "I wish to learn a pure water technique until the Dharma stage." Seeing that Lu Ping had made his choice, Master Xuanyuan brought Lu Ping into the library of the Heaven Spirit Palace. He handed a jade scroll to Lu Ping and said, "Lin High Wave Listening Technique, perfected to the mid-Dharma stage." In the history of Jinling, there have been 6 practitioners who used this technique to reach the Dharma stage, and 2 of them reached the mid-Dharma stage. Lu Ping finished copying the jade scroll and asked, "Uncle Master, may I also copy the other 2 pure water techniques for the core forging stage as a reference?" Enlightened Master Xuanyuan laughed again. Lu Ping was smart enough to pass the spirit stones to Enlightened Master Xuanyuan. Enlightened Master Xuanyuan waved his hand and passed 2 jade scrolls to Lu Ping. These jade scrolls only record the blood condensation realm's cultivation methods. Once you become a core disciple of our sect, you can come back and ask for more cultivation methods. After Lu Ping thanked him, the 3 returned to Master Xuanyuan's residence. Master Xuanyuan took out an exquisite storage pouch and handed it to Lu Ping. "Here, this is your reward for becoming an inner disciple. From now on, you can come back to the Heaven Spirit Palace to receive the sect's benefits. Of course, this all depends on your hard work. As long as you work hard, the sect will naturally have enough benefits waiting for you." After thanking him, Lu Ping scanned the storage pouch with his divine sense. There were 20 mid-grade spirit stones and 2 bottles of China root pills for blood condensation cultivators. This was a type of pill similar to the 1000 ginseng dan used by Qiao Shipeng, and this was only because the sect had increased the rewards for him after he broke through to the blood condensation realm. Ordinary early blood condensation realm cultivators would only receive 10 mid-grade spirit stones and a bottle of common medicinal pellets. Lu Ping had long realized the value of cultivation resources. Advancing from the blood refining stage to the blood condensation stage was a qualitative change in cultivation and lifespan. On the other hand, cultivation resources were a qualitative change from widespread to scarce. From now on, you are the 3rd-generation disciple of Jinling. Yes, the 3rd-generation disciple should be addressed with the word Z. From now on, your Dharma name will be Lu Zipping. At the same time, you also have the right to open a cave abode on Tianling Mountain. Of course, you can also open a cave abode outside of Tianling Mountain. If you do that, you will lose the right to open a cave abode on Tianling Mountain. The sect will compensate you in terms of benefits. Lu Ping thought for a moment. There were still many things that he didn't want people to pay attention to. In any case, there was a small spirit vein in Shang Tao's cave abode on the Reef Island. Although it couldn't compare to the large spirit vein on Tianling Mountain, he could enjoy it alone. It was no less than opening a cave abode on Tianling Mountain. "So," he said, "I don't plan on opening a cave abode on Tianling Mountain." Master Xuanyuan didn't ask for the reason. He said directly, "Oh, then you'll get an extra 12 mid-grade spirit stones every year." With that, he tossed the spirit stones to Lu Ping. Afterward, Master Xuanyuan picked up the novel on the table and began reading again. He said casually, "That's all. You can go into the scripture pavilion and see if there's anything you need, but don't look through the ones with restrictions. Oh right, after you've built your cave abode, you need to report here." With that, he no longer paid attention to Lu Ping. The 2 stayed in the scripture pavilion for a while longer before leaving the Heaven's Spirit Hall and descending the mountain. Along the way, Wu Ziniyu couldn't help but ask, "Junior brother, why don't you build a cave abode on Tianling Mountain?" It'll be very helpful to your cultivation. Lu Ping had already expected this question, so he answered, there are too many people on Tianling Mountain. I like peace and quiet, and I'm also a carefree person. I can't stand being restrained, so I came out. Wu Xinyu asked again, Junior brother, have you thought about where you'll build your cave abode? Lu Ping shook his head. I haven't thought about it yet, but I'm currently on a mission with Master Immortal Lu. Even if I build my cave abode, I'll still have to stay on Huangli Island for another year. I can't think about these things for now. Wu Xinyu saw that Lu Ping was already prepared for these questions, so he didn't ask any further. He said, then Junior brother should focus on your cultivation. Once you reach the fourth layer of the blood condensation realm and enter the mid-blood condensation realm, you can take on a master. At that time, with your young age, your cultivation will improve even faster. Lu Ping laughed. Thank you for your kind words, senior brother. Jinling placed great importance on the cultivation of the younger generation of disciples. At the same time, he also took into account the independent spirit of his disciples. Thus, for the first 10 years in the Jinling side hall, Jinling's disciples basically lived a compulsory life. Only after becoming a level 3 disciple would they be sent on missions under the lead of the Master Immortal. After reaching the blood condensation realm, the disciples would have to rely on their own hard work to break through to the fourth level of the blood condensation realm and reach the mid-stage of the blood condensation realm. Only after reaching the mid-stage of the blood condensation realm would they be able to become an elite disciple of the sect. This way, not only would the disciples' independent spirit be nurtured, but they would also no longer have to follow the crowd on the path of cultivation. On the path of cultivation, everyone's situation was different. Hence, everyone's path was different. As a master, he could only give pointers and not make decisions for his disciples. Otherwise, it would be rare for such a disciple to achieve great things. Even if the disciple made a mistake in his cultivation, the master would still be able to remedy it after entering the mid-blood condensation realm. After leaving Tianling Mountain, Lu Ping returned to the cultivation room he rented. Although Lu Ping now had a cultivation technique and understood many things about the blood condensation realm, everything he learned had become a mess after entering the blood condensation realm. He needed some time to sort it out. At the same time, he also needed to clarify his cultivation plan for the near future. Sitting cross-legged on the spirit-gathering cushion, Lu Ping was carefully studying the Lin-Hai wave listening technique in his hand. At the same time, there were a few jade slips placed in front of him. They were the cultivation techniques of other pure water Jiao bloodline blood condensation realm that he had copied from the scripture depository. In fact, Lu Ping even had a jade slip with a cultivation technique for the core forging realm. It was obtained from Qiao Shipeng. It was called the Fuyao Ninth Heaven Divine Art. It was a cultivation technique that cultivated both wind and water and targeted the Pong bloodline. Qiao Shipeng must have obtained a cultivation technique for the core forging realm because of the Qiao family's influence in Xianling sect. Now, Lu Ping had benefited again. Although Lu Ping couldn't cultivate directly due to the difference in their bloodlines, there were some similarities between water and water cultivation techniques. This jade slip with the cultivation technique for the core forging realm opened a window for Lu Ping. It allowed Lu Ping to peek into the mysteries of the core forging realm and avoid many detours. Chapter 63. The Sea Wave Listening Technique described the process of cultivation as the growth of a river. In the blood condensation realm, it would be like a mountain spring bursting out of the ground. It was pure. In the core forging realm, it would be like a raging river, unstoppable. In the aspect realm, it would be like a vast ocean. Lu Ping repeatedly studied the sea wave listening technique until he understood it thoroughly. Then, he tried to gradually replace the blood condensation spirit melting technique with the sea wave listening technique. When his entire bloodline began to circulate according to the sea wave listening technique, Lu Ping immediately felt like his blood was like a mountain spring bursting out of his heart. It let out a soft gurgling sound, singing a cheerful song, and rushed to every part of his body. The spiritual energy outside of his body quickly rushed into his body and was absorbed by his bloodline. As the spiritual energy in his bloodline grew stronger, strands of spiritual energy were also separated from his blood as it passed through his heart. They wrapped around the condensed blood bead in the space of his heart, causing the bead to grow larger and its surface to become more and more translucent. After circulating the technique for 12 times, Lu Ping gradually familiarized himself with the sea wave listening technique. A look of satisfaction appeared on his face. As expected, the blood condensation spirit melting technique, a blood condensation spirit melting technique, could not be compared to the blood condensation spirit melting technique. He had only cultivated for a day, but he could already feel the spiritual energy in his body growing significantly. There were still about 2 months until the rental of the spirit vein cultivation room. Lu Ping happened to have 3 bottles of blood condensation realm cultivation pills, which was exactly enough for 2 months. Normally, once a cultivator reached the blood condensation realm, the medicinal efficacy of the pills they consumed would increase tremendously. Even if the cultivator's cultivation also underwent a transformation, it would still take 3 days to completely consume the medicinal efficacy of the pills and expel the medicinal toxins. However, perhaps it was because after Lu Ping's flood dragon bloodline swallowed the tortoise bloodline, his FALI suddenly doubled. Or because Lu Ping's own accumulation was deep enough, or because of the Lin High Wave listening spell that he practiced, Lu Ping's time to digest the Dan was obviously shortened a lot. He only needed 2 days to completely consume the power of the Dan. In other words, compared to other cultivators, in the same amount of time, Lu Ping could consume half more pills to increase his cultivation. This was undoubtedly good news for Lu Ping. Because Lu Ping walked the path of pure water cultivation, this kind of cultivation method that pursued the foundation excessively, not only did it reduce the risks of cultivation, but it also made the cultivation method extremely slow. As a result, Lu Ping could at least have an advantage in the consumption of medicinal pills. However, this also forced Lu Ping to make a breakthrough in the field of Dan concoction. After Lu Ping's foundation bloodline swallowed the tortoise bloodline, it had an absolute advantage among the remaining 6 bloodlines. Normally, this kind of situation would only occur when a cultivator reached the 2nd level of the blood condensation realm and merged with the other bloodlines. Right now, Lu Ping didn't know whether this situation was good or bad for his bloodline, but he didn't want to ask others about it. There was always a sense of crisis in Lu Ping's heart. He didn't want others to know about his secret, especially the 20 years of experience in his soul. 2 months later, Lu Ping, whose cultivation had greatly improved, came out of seclusion. He went to enlightened Master Xian Yong's residence to express his gratitude, only to find out that enlightened Master Xian Yong had gone to Xianxi Island with Wu Xinyu, a group of senior immortals and level 3 disciples who had reached the late blood condensation realm. Lu Ping's intuition told him that there was a commotion on Xianxi Island, especially after he killed the Qiao brothers, causing Xianling sect and Qiao family to lose 2 direct descendants. It would be strange if Xianling sect and the Qiao family didn't react. On the contrary, Xianling sect took action only after half a year had passed. This made Lu Ping feel that Xianling sect's reaction was too slow. Thinking about his business on Huangli Island, the mini spirit vein and spiritual herb garden on the Reef Island, and the green sea snake's nest, Lu Ping couldn't help but feel anxious. Although Huangli Island was barren, he had spent a lot of effort to manage it for the past 2 years. Even though it was remote, it was still connected to Xianling sect's sea territory. There was no guarantee that no one would go there and cause trouble. If someone discovered the spirit vein and the green sea snake's nest, he would suffer a huge loss. With this thought in mind, Lu Ping hurried to Xianxi Island through the teleportation array. Currently, Xianxi Island was livelier than before. Not only were there many level 3 disciples and outer disciples from the side halls, but there were also many blood condensation realm senior immortals. Cultivators who could fly in the air without relying on magical artifacts were often seen on the island. Lu Ping could clearly sense the solemn atmosphere on the island, as if they were preparing for war. Lu Ping went straight to Master Immortal Lu's cultivation room. When Master Immortal Lu saw Lu Ping's return, he was pleasantly surprised. "You really didn't disappoint me. You came back at the right time. The current situation is very tense. The slightest friction between the 2 sects could lead to a war between multiple sections. With your current cultivation, it's time for you to contribute." Lu Ping briefly explained his breakthrough to Master Immortal Lu. Of course, he didn't mention the devouring of his bloodline, the mutation of his divine sense, and the use of 4 blood-condensing pills. He only mentioned that he used 2 blood-condensing pills. Even so, Master Immortal Lu was still impressed by Lu Ping's profound cultivation. Lu Ping asked Master Immortal Lu about the current situation, and Master Immortal Lu explained everything in detail to Lu Ping. After Qiao Shiping was killed by Lu Ping, Xinling sect and Jinling didn't know about it. Jinling thought that Qiao Shiping had killed the snake demon and returned to the Qiao family. The Qiao family, on the other hand, thought that Qiao Shiping was still hunting the snake demon. Through the guards who returned to the family, they found out that Qiao Shiping was hunting a monster with a noble bloodline, the green sea snake. Moreover, Qiao Shiping had already ventured deep into Jinling's territory. The Qiao family couldn't sit still anymore. They quickly sent out 6 blood condensation cultivators, led by 2 mid-blood condensation cultivators, to rescue Qiao Shiping. However, the 6 of them roamed the nearby waters for almost a month and still couldn't find Qiao Shiping. This caused the Qiao family to panic. They quickly increased the number of people from 6 to 15, divided into 3 teams, and each team was led by a late blood condensation cultivator. They were tasked to search for Qiao Shiping in Jinling's territory. The Qiao family's brazen actions naturally angered Jinling. Hence, enlightened Master Chu ordered the 15 people to leave Jinling's territory and warned them that this was Jinling's territory. If the Qiao family wanted to enter again, they wouldn't be able to leave. Helpless, the Qiao family could only seek help from Xinling sect. This incident was originally planned by Xinling sect, and Qiao Shiping's disappearance caught Xinling sect off guard. Xinling sect hastily accused Jinling of murdering the Qiao family's successor. Naturally, Jinling refused to back down. He reprimanded Xinling sect and the North Sea Alliance for framing them. At the same time, he questioned Qiao Shiping on why he trespassed into Jinling's territory to hunt demonic beasts. Now that he failed to hunt the demonic beasts might even think of him as their prey. Jinling's accusation angered Xinling sect, but they couldn't expose their plan to the public. Hence, they issued an ultimatum. If Jinling didn't give them an explanation, Xinling sect would take back Xianqi Island. At the same time, Xinling sect, who thought that they had the moral advantage, formed a group in the North Sea Alliance to denounce Jinling. Jinling naturally took action as well. The relationship between the two sides became tense, and it seemed like a war could break out at any moment. At the end of the day, the battle between the two sects was a battle of interests and cultivation resources. These were all related to whether a cultivator could achieve the Tao or not. In the cultivation world, there was a saying, stopping a cultivator from achieving the Tao is equivalent to killing one's parents. On the other hand, Xinling sect was blindly trying to gain the upper hand in public opinion. After all, a battle of words and tongues was a mess. How could others know who was right and who was wrong? It was just a case of the winner taking all. Just like the time when Jinling insisted that Xinling sect and the other sects were spying on Xinling sect's secrets. Without any explanation, Xinling sect seized more than a dozen islands from Xinling sect and the other sections. How could Xinling sect have a chance to refute? When the dust settled and Xinling sect tried to defend themselves, they found out that in the eyes of the North Sea Alliance, they were already guilty of spying on others. From Lu Ping's point of view, Qiao Shiping entered Jinling's waters to hunt down the green sea snake in the name of avenging his brother was probably connived by Xinling sect. Xinling sect used this to provoke Jinling. When Jinling expelled Qiao Shiping, Xinling sect could then use Jinling's conspiracy to kill Xinling sect's disciples to unite with the other sects in the North Sea Alliance to punish Jinling. Unexpectedly, Qiao Shiping's body was destroyed by Lu Ping, and the green sea snake was killed in its own lair. Now, there was no evidence left, and Xinling sect's plan became useless. When Xinling sect realized what was going on, Jinling was already prepared, but Xinling sect was in a difficult position. To fight or not to fight became a problem. If they fought, they wouldn't have the upper hand in public opinion. If they didn't fight, Xinling sect would suffer a huge loss for no reason, but they didn't have the guts to retaliate. What would happen to their pride as the #1 sect in the North Sea? After all, Xinling sect still didn't have the confidence to defeat Jinling in terms of strength. Yet, they still claimed to be the #1 sect in the North Sea. They forgot that dignity was earned by themselves, and status was supported by strength. Lu Ping once again arrived at Dikuan Island. It was still bustling with activity, and there was no sign of war. Lu Ping decided to build a cave abode on Huangli Island. Coupled with the recent tense situation, he naturally had to make ample preparations. When Lu Ping arrived at the multi-treasure pavilion, the staff immediately brought him to the second floor. This was the place where blood condensation realm cultivators frequented. A steward came up to him and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist, you don't look familiar. Is this your first time coming to our pavilion?" His friendly demeanor made one feel a sense of familiarity. Lu Ping didn't act pretentious and went straight to the point. "I've just entered the blood condensation realm and am building a cave abode. I need a set of defensive formations. Do you have any suitable formation discs?" The steward made an inviting gesture and led Lu Ping to the living room to serve him tea. After some small talk, Lu Ping learned that the steward's surname was Jia. A moment later, a staff came in with 3 sets of formation discs on wooden trays. Steward Jia pointed at the 3 sets of formation discs and explained, "Lu Xiaoyu, these 3 sets of formation discs are top-notch formations for blood condensation realm cultivators. The first set is engraved with the Lesser 3 Talents formation. It's powerful and simple to set up. It's a common formation used by cultivators to protect their cave abodes, but it's also a formation that most cultivators are familiar with. The second set is called the Misty Mirage formation. It's not very powerful, but it focuses on creating illusions. It's also quite effective and simple to set up. Most importantly, it's not too expensive. As for the third set, it's called the Ice River Killing formation. This formation isn't any weaker than the Lesser 3 Talents formation. However, because it's complicated to set up and consumes a lot of energy, cultivators don't use it often. It's also troublesome to decipher. Naturally, it's also the most expensive." Lu Ping thought for a moment and asked, "What requirements do these 3 formations have for the cultivator?" Steward Jia praised and said, "Lu Xiaoyu is very thoughtful. The Lesser 3 Talents formation can be used in a wide range of areas and doesn't have any special requirements. The Misty Mirage formation is best used by cultivators who cultivate wind, water, ice, or wood elemental cultivation techniques. As for the Ice River Killing formation, it's only suitable for cultivators who cultivate ice and water elemental cultivation techniques." Lu Ping's expression was calm. He pondered for a moment and asked, "How much is this Ice River Killing formation worth?" Steward Jia's face lit up when he heard Lu Ping's answer. He knew that Lu Ping was a potential customer, so he said, "This formation is worth 5,000 spirit stones. However, since you're a new blood condensation cultivator, this old man will give you a 10% discount to celebrate your breakthrough." When Lu Ping heard the price of 5,000 spirit stones, his heart skipped a beat. Only then did he realize that he was no longer a blood refining cultivator. Lu Ping might be considered a wealthy man in the blood refining realm, but in the eyes of a blood condensation cultivator, he was still a poor man. Lu Ping gritted his teeth and took out 45 mid-grade spirit stones from his interspatial pouch and handed them to Steward Jia. With this, Lu Ping's gains from Chao Shiping and the 1,000 spirit stones given to him by the sect were almost used up. Before leaving, Lu Ping told Steward Jia that he needed to take care of some miscellaneous items that he didn't need. At the same time, he also needed to consign some items for sale at the Multi-Treasures Pavilion's auction. Steward Jia ordered a shop assistant to bring Lu Ping to the auction. When Lu Ping came out of the Multi-Treasures Pavilion, he had 20 mid-grade spirit stones and an invitation to the Blood Condensation Realm auction that would be held on the 12th of April next year. Chapter 65. Lu Ping calculated the items in his interspatial pouch. He still had about 4,000 spirit stones. He couldn't touch the spirit herbs as he needed to learn alchemy, which would come in handy in the future. The spiritual materials for smithing were mostly what he got from Chao Shiping and his brother. The talismans were almost all processed. The talismans for the blood refining realm were basically useless to Lu Ping now. After gaining divine sense, Lu Ping's talismans for the blood refining realm were all top-grade and high-grade talismans, and almost 60% of them were top-grade talismans. A few sets of warning talismans and landmine talismans had already been entrusted to the auction house to be auctioned off. In addition to the 6 bottles of blood solidifying pills and a few mid-grade mystic instruments that he had no use for, These were all items that he could sell at the auction house. Lu Ping originally had 3 bottles of blood vigor pills, but he couldn't bear to auction them off. Although the effects of the blood vigor pills on his cultivation were negligible, they were still somewhat useful. In a situation where blood condensation realm pills were scarce, even a mosquito's leg was meat. Now, Lu Ping finally understood why blood vigor pills were so scarce in the blood refining realm. The biggest possibility was that blood condensation realm cultivators who couldn't buy blood condensation realm pills had stolen the opportunity. No matter what, blood refining realm cultivators couldn't compete with blood condensation realm cultivators. Xiao Shiping's 3 condensed blood pearls were also the main reason why Lu Ping received the invitation. Otherwise, Lu Ping would have to spend quite a sum of spirit stones to buy the admission ticket. After that, he would try to make blood condensation realm talismans. Blood condensation realm talismans weren't differentiated by power. All blood condensation realm talismans were basically the same in power, but the frequency at which they were cast differed. A good blood condensation realm talisman could only cast 3 spells before it was destroyed. Lu Ping then went to the pill sales pavilion in the market. The manager of the pill sales pavilion, Master Immortal Li, was an old acquaintance of Lu Ping. When he saw that Lu Ping had succeeded in the blood condensation realm, he was shocked. "Little brother, it's only been a few months, but you've already made such great achievements. You're now an inner disciple of our sect. You have such a bright future ahead of you at such a young age." Lu Ping smiled and said, "You flatter me, Immortal Elder. I was just lucky." Master Immortal Li waved his hand. "Since you've already reached the blood condensation realm, you and I should address each other as brothers. If you still address me as a junior, that would be a slap to my face." Lu Ping knew that he couldn't be careless with this matter, so he didn't insist and said, "This time, little brother is here for the pills." Master Immortal Li seemed to have already expected this. He led Lu Ping to the back hall and said, "Although our sect's pill-selling pavilion has opened a store to sell pills, we only sell ordinary pills. Starting from the blood-solidifying pill, we no longer sell pills for cultivation." Lu Ping knew that Master Immortal Li was going to tell him about the unspoken rules of Zhenling. This was a secret method used by large sects to amass wealth. After all, it was not an easy task to support such a large sect. Lu Ping said, "Senior brother, if you have something to say, just say it. What comes out of your mouth will enter my ears." Master Immortal Li nodded. "Junior brother is an old customer of mine, so of course I trust you. Blood condensation pills are naturally rarer than high-grade pills for the blood refining realm. That's why the supply of pills is based on the seasons, and there's a limit of 1 bottle per season." Lu Ping knew that it was difficult to supply pills for the blood condensation realm, but he was still shocked to hear that. Master Immortal Li didn't care about Lu Ping's expression. He probably had seen this many times before. He continued, "Also, due to the scarcity of spiritual herbs, we can't supply them in bulk. Usually, we have to gather enough spiritual herbs for a certain type of pill and then refine it. This is because the supply of pills varies from season to season. Sometimes, 10 pills per bottle is also the number of different types of pills." Lu Ping was already dumbfounded by Master Immortal Li's explanation. He waited for Master Immortal Li to finish before saying, "So it's that difficult? In that case, I can't wait any longer. Senior Martial brother, just name the price." Master Immortal Li smiled. "As you know, ordinary blood condensation realm pills are usually worth about 10 times more than blood solidifying pills. However, in reality, there's no market for them. That's why the price of each bottle is set at 1,200 spirit stones. If it's a rogue cultivator or a cultivator from outside the sect, the price will rise to 1,500 spirit stones." Lu Ping obediently handed over 10 mid-grade spirit stones and 200 spirit stones to Master Immortal Li. Master Immortal Li smiled and said, "Since we need to confirm the name list in advance, we'll have to pay half a year's deposit first." Lu Ping had no choice but to add another 1,200 spirit stones. After receiving a bottle of China root pills from Master Immortal Li, Lu Ping also received a bronze token. The words Di Kuan were engraved on the front, and a pill furnace was engraved on the north side. Master Immortal Li explained, "This is your proof of purchasing pills from the pill store. With this token, you can buy pills from any pill store in the sect on time." I know you're familiar with Su Zixin from the side courtyard market, but you don't have to think about buying 2 sets of pills like you did back when you were in the blood refining realm. The supply of pills for blood condensation realm and above is unified. You just need to register here, and Su Zixin will naturally know. Lu Ping smiled sheepishly. He really did have this thought before. Lu Ping hesitated for a moment. Senior brother, I want to learn pill refining from the sect's master. Is that okay? Master Immortal Li seemed to have expected this question. He sighed and said, when I first found out about the difficulty of the supply of pills, my first thought was to learn pill refining. However, I gave up on this idea in the end. Instead, I spent a lot of effort to find this job at the pill store. Let me ask you, what is the attribute of your foundation bloodline after you reached the blood condensation realm? Lu Ping actually already had an understanding of pill refining. He could only smile awkwardly and say, I have the water attribute. Master Immortal Li shook his head. The path of a pill master is one of high status, strict rules, and strict inheritance. In order to become a pill master, a cultivator's bloodline must have the attribute of both wood and fire. Next is a pure wood or fire attribute. Of course, there is no need to mention the fire attribute. Pill refiners must first control the fire, so cultivators with the fire attribute have an advantage. Wood attribute cultivators have a better grasp of the medicinal properties of spirit herbs than other attributes. Apart from that, the cultivator's comprehension and talent also depends on whether they have the guidance of a famous master. Before becoming a pill master, they must have a large amount of spirit herbs to practice with. Just this alone is a huge expense. Thus, every pill master is very strict when choosing a disciple. Most of them only have one disciple. Once they choose a disciple, they will do their best to nurture them. Lu Ping still didn't give up. I still want to try. I wonder if I can ask for some pill refining insights from the sect's pill masters? Even a few pill recipes are fine. Master Immortal Li looked at Lu Ping and said, all right, I'll have to make you give up. Even if you have the insights, they won't be of a high level. I do have pill recipes, but they don't just contain the spirit herbs needed to refine a certain pill. They also describe in detail what temperature to add what spirit herbs, what order to add the spirit herbs, when to add them, and so on. It's extremely complicated. Thus, every pill recipe is made into a single-use talisman. After reading it, it will automatically destroy itself. Thus, every pill recipe needs to be bought with spirit stones. Lu Ping nodded and said, thank you, senior martial brother. Thank you for the trouble. Chapter 66. After Lu Ping left the pill store, he went to Old Chin's smithy. The shop was the same as the last time he came. Old Chin wasn't there, but Chun Lian recognized Lu Ping. Seeing Lu Ping walk over, he quickly went to greet him. When he reached Lu Ping's side, he said in surprise, Ha, junior brother has also reached the blood condensation realm. Impressive. Did you find the spiritual materials to upgrade your landslide? Did you find deep-sea frigid iron, golden crow iron, or wind dust iron? Lu Ping saw that Qin Lian was talking about smithing the moment they met and knew that this senior brother was obsessed with smithing. He laughed and said, I didn't find deep-sea frigid iron, but I did find a piece of wind dust iron, but it's only the size of an egg. I'm afraid it won't be enough. The wind dust iron was also obtained from Qiao Shipeng. Lu Ping remembered Old Qin's instructions, so he naturally kept it. Chun Lian scratched his head and said, I was too impatient. Landslide focuses on gravity attacks. If I want to upgrade it, I need a lot of spiritual materials. An egg-sized piece of wind dust iron is far from enough. Lu Ping said, since it's a lot and these 3 spiritual materials are hard to find, why don't we gather all 3 together and smelt them together? It'll be easier that way. Chun Lian shook his head and said, no, that's not right. That way, landslide will at most become a top-grade magic tool. It'll be even more difficult to turn it into a magic tool in the future. Lu Ping didn't know anything about smithing, so he quickly asked, what do you mean? Chun Lian said seriously, fine iron, profound iron, deep-sea frigid iron, golden crow iron, and wind dust iron are all metal-type spiritual materials. However, deep-sea frigid iron is inclined towards the water attribute, golden crow iron is inclined towards the fire attribute, and wind dust iron is inclined towards the wind attribute. Using only one of these three spiritual materials to upgrade landslide is naturally not a problem, but if all three are used, their attributes will not be compatible. Even if landslide is upgraded to a top-grade magic tool, its power will be greatly reduced. It'll be impossible to upgrade it to a magic tool in the future. Lu Ping felt that he had learned something new and hurriedly asked, "Does it also depend on the cultivation method of the user?" Chunlian nodded and said, "Yes, yes, yes. I almost forgot. What is your main cultivation method?" Lu Ping said, "It's a water attribute technique." Chunlian let out an "oh" and said, "In that case, it would be best to use deep-sea frigid iron. It's just right for your technique. Actually, the best spirit material to upgrade landslide is Vajra iron. It's a pure gold attribute spirit material. But if that's the case, it won't be able to display its full power in the hands of a water attribute cultivator like you." Chunlian suddenly thought of something and said, "Right? Why are you here today?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "I thought you forgot. Today, I wanted to ask you about your natal Dharma artifact." Chunlian smiled embarrassedly and said, "About that, according to reason, your true inheritance cultivation method should have it." Even though the Lin-Hai wave listening formula that Lu Ping cultivated was not one of Jinling's 5 great inheritances, it was still relatively complete. Naturally, it had the method to refine a natal Dharma artifact. This was a necessary part of a complete cultivation system. Lu Ping only came here to understand more. After all, a natal Dharma artifact was of great importance. Lu Ping had to be cautious, so he said, "I'll need an expert like you to look at it in detail." Chunlian was very attentive to Lu Ping's consultation. He lowered his head and thought carefully before saying, "The most important thing about a natal Dharma artifact is spiritual materials. First of all, spiritual materials must be compatible with the attribute of the cultivator's cultivation method. Only then can it increase the cultivator's strength to the greatest extent. Secondly, although a natal Dharma artifact can improve along with the cultivator's cultivation, there is still a difference in the degree of improvement. One of the important reasons for this difference is the quality of the spiritual materials. Also, to improve a natal Dharma artifact, one needs to continuously inject 9 kinds of Dharma prohibitions. If the quality of the spiritual materials is not high, the natal Dharma artifact may collapse after only a few. The second important thing is to look at the profound level prohibitions used when refining the Dharma artifact. Each of the 9 prohibitions is different, but they must be of the same origin. If the attribute is not compatible, it will inevitably affect the power of the Dharma artifact. Of course, it also depends on the level of the cultivator's mana and the quality of the cultivation method. Finally, don't forget to find a good refiner." Lu Ping looked at Chunlian's proud expression and knew that he was talking about his own family. But he was still grateful for Chunlian's detailed explanation. So he said, "If I make a natal Dharma artifact, I will definitely ask for your help." Chunlian was overjoyed and said, "Really? Haha, that's great. Up until now, I have only made a natal Dharma artifact for myself. Don't worry, I will definitely make a good Dharma artifact for you." Lu Ping heard this and quickly asked, "You said that a natal Dharma artifact needs spiritual materials. What kind of spiritual materials do you think are best to make a Dharma artifact?" Chunlian said, "Naturally, it's spiritual objects that have lost their spirituality." Chunlian saw that Lu Ping was confused and said, "The so-called spiritual objects are spiritual objects of various attributes. For example, my family's stone jade fire." Spiritual objects are divided into 3 ranks and 9 grades. Although the stone jade fire is of the lower grade of the profound level, this classification only focuses on the size of its power. Actually, every kind of spiritual object is very rare, and every one of them is very precious. Lu Ping had some understanding of this because he himself had a spiritual object, which was alchemist Sheng Tao's blue spirit fire. It was of the upper grade of the profound level, but it was much more precious than the stone jade fire. However, the stone jade fire's fire nature was explosive, suitable for forging weapons, while the blue spirit fire's fire nature was relatively mild, suitable for refining pills. Seeing that Lu Ping was listening attentively, Chunlian became even more enthusiastic and said, Although these spiritual objects are formed by heaven and earth, they can't last forever. After a long time, they lose the replenishment of energy and will slowly dry up, degenerating into some spiritual materials of the highest grade. For example, the stone jade fire. Without Father's nourishment, it may degenerate into a piece of stone jade after a few hundred years. These spiritual materials are the most suitable to make a natal Dharma artifact. In the future, not only will it be easier to make a natal Dharma artifact, its power will naturally be quite impressive. Lu Ping said with pity, "How can we find such a good thing in such a short time?" Chunlian replied, "There's no rush. Even though the power of a natal artifact isn't weak, the difference isn't that obvious in the blood condensation realm. You can use other artifacts to replace it. For example, your landslide. Even an ordinary high-grade natal artifact might not be as powerful as it. Of course, the grade of the natal artifact will increase according to the cultivator's cultivation level. Only late blood condensation realm cultivators can own a high-grade natal artifact. Therefore, it also depends on who has the natal artifact. Dharma artifact. However, it's best to forge a natal Dharma artifact before advancing to the core forging realm. Otherwise, it will affect the advancement of the natal Dharma artifact. However, I don't know why it will affect the natal Dharma artifact because I haven't reached that level yet." Chapter 67. After leaving Old Chin's smithing shop, Lu Ping teleported back to Xianqi Island through the teleportation array. From there, he flew back to Huangli Island. Along the way, Lu Ping flew as fast as lightning. The low-grade flying boat beneath his feet was unleashed to its maximum speed, allowing Lu Ping to experience what it felt like to be a blood condensation realm expert. Lu Ping sat in the cultivation room. After a series of exchanges, he already had a plan for his blood condensation realm cultivation. Of course, he still had to prepare for the upcoming war between the two sections. Although Lu Ping had been preparing for it all this time, he still had to prepare for it. First, he had to open up his cave abode. Initially, Lu Ping wanted to go to the green sea snake's lair to plunder, as Lu Ping had used up almost all of his blood refining realm savings. However, after considering the current situation and the fact that the lair was located in Xianling sect's territory, Lu Ping decided to go there at night to avoid attracting unwanted attention. Lu Ping's decision to open up his cultivation room underground was mainly due to the influence of Shang Tao's cave abode and Master Immortal Lu's words. Lu Ping arrived at the hillside of Huangli Island. The two freshwater rivers on the island both originated from this hillside, one in the northeast and the other in the southeast. In the middle of the two rivers, which was the back of the hillside, was a steep cliff that was more than 100 feet high. Lu Ping decided to build his cave abode here. Actually, Lu Ping also wanted to see if the two rivers on the island had the same source. After all, he cultivated a water-type cultivation technique. Cultivating next to water was always comfortable. Lu Ping released Debeo. For the past few months, Debeo had been kept in Lu Ping's spirit beast pouch and rarely saw the light of day. On the other hand, Lu Ping fed Debeo all the low-grade blood refining realm pills he refined before. When Debeo came out of the spirit beast pouch, it excitedly circled around Lu Ping. However, no matter how one looked at it, it looked like a big meatball rolling around. Debeo had gained weight again, to the point that his legs could no longer be seen. However, his cultivation had advanced to the third level of the blood condensation realm. He could be considered an expert among the spirit-seeking mice. Summoning the flying sword, the flying swallow sword nimbly drew a flower and immediately displayed a set of sword techniques in the air. This was one of the 8 techniques that came with the art of listening to waves from the sea. It was known as one of the 8 techniques of listening to waves, and its name was Stone-Piercing Sky Sword Technique. This was the first time Lu Ping had displayed this sword technique. In the past, he was only able to familiarize himself with it. However, Lu Ping had already comprehended the force realm of the water-type cultivation technique. In just a short while, he had already grasped the essence of the sword technique. The flying swallow sword instantly turned into a white wave that reflected the sunlight and rushed towards the cliff. It was like a raging wave crashing against the shore, wanting to dig a big hole in the cliff by the shore. In just a short while, A large hole that was big enough for one person to enter and exit had been opened on the cliff. At this time, Debeo, who was following behind Lu Ping, suddenly ran to the front and began to squeak. Lu Ping's face lit up. It seemed like there really was a place where spiritual energy gathered here. Normally, the source of a river was a place with spiritual energy that was favored by the heavens and earth. It would often become a place where spiritual energy gathered, and some would even form a spiritual vein. Therefore, it was said that the great sects of the land's cultivation world would often station their sects at the source of the river. The flying swallow's sword opened up a path of about 10 feet diagonally downwards. The flying swallow's sword pierced through empty air. The belly of the mountain was originally empty. The belly of the mountain was about 100 feet in circumference and 4 to 5 feet in height. On the ground, there was a clear spring that burst out from the cracks in the rocks and flowed to both sides. Presumably, this was the source of the two rivers on the island. However, the amount of water was so small. Presumably, when it flowed through the cracks in the rocks on both sides, there would be other tributaries to replenish it. The belly of the mountain was surrounded by stone walls. Although there was water flowing on the ground, it did not seem humid and suffocating, making it an ideal living environment. The place where the clear spring burst out from the ground was where the spiritual energy gathered. Debeo had already drunk a bellyful of water and was lying on the stone platform on the side, too lazy to move. Lu Ping was very satisfied with this place, but it could only be used as a cultivation room. Lu Ping returned to the open path and used the flying swallow sword to open up a hall on both sides of the cave as a guest room. Then, he returned to the belly of the mountain and opened up an alchemy room and a study room on both sides of the stone walls. He also opened up a spirit beast room as Debeo's room. Then, he opened up a half-mu wide spiritual herb garden on both sides of the clear spring. He was prepared to move the spiritual vein from Shang Tao's spiritual herb garden over here and transplant the spiritual herbs there. After completing the construction of the cave, Lu Ping started to set up the ice river killing array around the cave. He placed the array disc into the belly of the mountain and placed 8 mid-grade spirit stones in the center of the array disc. Then, he placed a few ice and water attribute spiritual materials at specific locations around the cave. After returning to the belly of the mountain, Lu Ping activated the array. Immediately, the area within a radius of 100 zhang around the cave was bitterly cold. If a blood condensation cultivator tried to barge into the cave, they would be greeted by icicles. Lu Ping stepped into the hailstones and tried to sense them. He only lasted for 2 hours before his arcane energy depleted. No wonder Multi-Treasure Pavilion's manager Jia said that even a late blood condensation realm cultivator would be trapped in the hailstones. The arrangement of the array formation was based on the position of the array disc, which was determined by Lu Ping himself. Even the array formation master who crafted the array disc would have to first determine the position and placement of the array disc in order to decipher the array formation. Otherwise, he would have to start from scratch. This way, the cultivators could purchase the array disc without worries and set up the array formation in their cave dwelling. There was a small illusion array around the array. It could prevent mortals from entering by mistake, but it was useless against cultivators. Lu Ping changed the array disc to an automatic mode. This way, the array could be hidden during normal times. When an enemy entered the range of the array would suddenly activate and catch them off guard. Lu Ping looked at the 8 mid-grade spirit stones on the array disc, then looked at the 36 types of spiritual materials buried around it. He was probably the blood condensation cultivator with the least amount of spirit stones. Lu Ping only had 29 low-grade spirit stones in his storage bag. Originally, there were 3 ways to activate the array disc. The first way was to use 60 low-grade spirit stones. This way, the power of the array would not be maximized and the duration of activation would be the shortest. The second way was to use 4 mid-grade spirit stones and 32 low-grade spirit stones. This way, the power of the array could be maximized and the duration of activation would be slightly longer. The third way was to use 8 mid-grade spirit stones to maximize the power of the array. Lu Ping was a person who would make do with anything if he didn't have it. If he did have it, he would want the best of everything. Since he had enough spirit stones, why should he be stingy? Moreover, Lu Ping had a lot of good stuff on him. He could turn them into spirit stones at any time. Chapter 68. After a whole day of hard work, Lu Ping finally finished preparing the place where he would live and work in the future. The sun was setting in the west, and the afterglow of the setting sun shone on Huangli Island, covering it with a layer of golden sand. Lu Ping looked at the darkening sky, and his heart began to race. He couldn't wait to reap the harvest from the green sea snake's lair. 29 spirit stones. How many years ago was the last time he was in such a predicament? What level of blood-refining realm was he at that time? The sky finally darkened, and there wasn't a trace of wind on the calm sea surface. However, a man in black was driving a small boat, sailing across the sky not far from the sea surface. He was so fast that only a black shadow could be seen, as if he had blended into the darkening night. In Xianling sect's territory, the man in black encountered a group of Xianling sect cultivators who were patrolling the sea. Fortunately, the sea here was also a remote and desolate place. If it weren't for the tense relationship between Zhenling and Xianling sect, there wouldn't even be a cultivator patrolling the sea. These cultivators were all blood-refining realm disciples, so they were easily avoided by the man in black. After venturing more than 10 miles into Xianling sect's territory, the man in black suddenly stopped on the sea surface. He took out a talisman from his storage pouch, which was glowing with a faint silver light from time to time. The man in black was overjoyed, as if he had found something. This man in black was Lu Ping, and the talisman in his hand was the parent talisman of the child-parent warning talisman. Last time, Lu Ping left a child-parent warning talisman near the green sea snake's lair as a mark. Lu Ping used the water-repelling art and slid towards the bottom of the sea. This time, Lu Ping easily sank to the bottom of the sea. The huge water pressure last time was nothing to Lu Ping now. At the same time, Lu Ping majored in the water, so Lu Ping had a deep sense of intimacy with the sea. Lu Ping suddenly felt that he should have been the spirit of the water. It was just that he had left the water for too long and needed to familiarize himself with it again. However, that natural closeness could not be erased no matter what. At this time, the bottom of the sea was dark, but it was not a problem for Lu Ping. With the detection of the warning talisman, Lu Ping easily found the place where the green sea snake fell last time. Even though almost a year had passed, the green sea snake's corpse was still well preserved. Its blood condensation realm cultivation and noble bloodline allowed it to remain in good condition. The faint aura it exuded was enough to deter the nearby sea creatures. Lu Ping was already very familiar with handling the carcass of the green sea snake. In no time at all, the meat, skin, and bones of the green sea snake were all dealt with. At the same time, he also obtained a condensed blood bead from a level 3 blood condensation cultivator. The green sea snake's carcass was lying in front of a natural cave formed by a reef. After Lu Ping handled the carcass, he moved towards the cave entrance. For safety's sake, Lu Ping even took out the flying swallow sword in preparation. The green sea snake's nest was quite well chosen. The entrance of the nest was very long, and it was slowly slanting towards the surface of the sea. Lu Ping moved in the cave for nearly half a mile before he saw a faint light at the entrance of the cave. Lu Ping became even more careful. He arrived at the entrance of the cave and probed the nest with his divine sense. After confirming that it was safe, Lu Ping walked out of the sea and entered the nest. As soon as he entered the cave, Lu Ping immediately felt that the spiritual energy was much denser than outside. Lu Ping immediately became excited. Could it be that there was also a spirit vein here? Lu Ping felt the density of the spiritual energy. It should be about the same as the mini spirit vein in the spiritual herb garden. The nest should be built in the belly of a small island. It was slightly smaller than Lu Ping's cave, but it was enough for 2 adult green sea snakes to stay inside. The entrance that Lu Ping entered the nest was right in the middle of the nest. There were many plants growing around the cave. Lu Ping saw quite a number of spiritual herbs. Among them, there were more than 10 spiritual herbs that were used to concoct blood condensation realm pills. However, only 7 or 8 of them were mature. Lu Ping looked around the nest, searching for the source of the spirit vein. Only then did he find something behind a boulder on the north side of the nest. This boulder was placed horizontally in front of the stone wall. It was connected to the stone wall from top to bottom. At first glance, it looked as if the boulder was part of the stone wall. As Lu Ping walked closer, he discovered that there was a space behind the boulder. The dense spiritual energy was coming from this space. Lu Ping crawled behind the boulder and saw that in the center of this small space, there were more than 10 500-year-old spiritual herbs growing closely together. These spiritual herbs were spread out in all directions, forming a nest. On top of the nest, there were 3 pure white snake eggs. The surface of the eggs was glowing, like 3 huge jade pearls. Although the 3 snake eggs looked fresh, Lu Ping's divine sense could sense that the vitality inside them was slowly diminishing. Obviously, after losing the care of its parents, even with the continuous supply of spiritual energy from the spirit vein and the nourishment from the surrounding spiritual herbs, the snake eggs still couldn't escape the fate of death. Fortunately, Lu Ping came. Ever since Lu Ping understood the status of the green sea snake in the demon race, he couldn't forget about the spirit snake's nest. He even risked provoking a war between the 2 sects to explore the nest at night. His main purpose was to find the eggs of the green sea snake. Now that his wish was fulfilled, Lu Ping's excitement was indescribable. Carefully holding the 3 spirit snake eggs in his hands, Lu Ping slowly injected his arcane energy into the eggs according to the method of incubating spirit beast recorded in Shang Tao's observation log. With his divine sense, Lu Ping could clearly feel the vitality of the 3 snake eggs slowly recovering. Lu Ping plucked the dozen 500-year-old spiritual herbs under the snake eggs and placed them into the prepared jade box. Then, he pasted a spirit sealing talisman on the surface of the jade box. 500-year-old spiritual herbs were generally necessary to concoct blood condensation pills. Naturally, Lu Ping had to treat them with caution. While plucking the spiritual herbs, Lu Ping noticed that there were also a dozen mid-grade spirit stones placed in the middle of the spiritual herbs. This must be the doing of the spirit snake's parents. Before a demon beast enters the core forging realm and transforms, it rarely uses a storage artifact. If it encountered a spiritual material that was useful to it, it would directly swallow it into its stomach. But now, it had placed a dozen spirit stones under the snake eggs. How pitiful of parents. While sighing, Lu Ping put the dozen spirit stones into his pouch. He wanted to use them as a last resort. Lu Ping was scared of poverty. After walking around the lair, Lu Ping plucked all the mature spiritual herbs in the surroundings. In addition to the previous dozen 500-year-old spiritual herbs, Lu Ping had a total of 23 500-year-old spiritual herbs and 50 100-year-old spiritual herbs that could be used to concoct blood condensation pills. As for the rest of the unripe spiritual herbs, Lu Ping planned to move this spirit vein to his cave abode on Huangli Island. When the time came, he would transplant the spiritual herbs there. Just these dozens of spiritual herbs were already a large amount of income. Unfortunately, since Lu Ping was determined to concoct pills, these spiritual herbs could not be exchanged for spirit stones. Instead, they were destined to be wasted by Lu Ping. There were also a few pieces of red copper scattered around the lair. Red copper was a spiritual material used to forge fire attribute magic tools. These ores were barely enough to forge a mid-grade magic tool. Chapter 69. In the green sea snake's lair, Lu Ping was thinking about how to move the 2 spirit veins to his cave dwelling. Suddenly, the warning talisman in Lu Ping's pocket vibrated. Lu Ping was taken aback. Did someone discover him? Lu Ping held the prime charm in his hand and carefully read the information from the child charm. According to the fluctuations of spiritual energy, the visitor should be a blood-refining realm cultivator. But strangely, the visitor was able to dive so deep into the sea. Even when Lu Ping was at the 9th layer blood-refining realm, he couldn't dive so deep into the sea. Lu Ping was able to fight head-on against blood condensation realm cultivators. Could it be that the intruder has a water-type treasure? Thinking of this, Lu Ping's heart was filled with excitement. Seeing that he had looted almost everything in the lair, he used an invisibility technique and walked out of the lair. Lu Ping quietly walked out of the lair, but he didn't see the blood-refining realm cultivator. Instead, there was a strange-looking fish with a mouth full of sharp teeth swimming around the lair. As soon as Lu Ping walked out of the lair, the strange fish sensed Lu Ping's presence. It turned around and fled towards the eastern sea. This was a blood-refining realm demonic beast. Lu Ping couldn't let it get away. He didn't want anyone to discover this lair, so Lu Ping quickly chased after it. The strange fish's cultivation was around the 8th layer blood-refining realm. Initially, Lu Ping didn't care about this level of cultivation. However, when Lu Ping chased after it, he realized that he was gravely mistaken. In just a short moment, the strange fish had already swam 400 feet away, out of Lu Ping's range of divine sense. Lu Ping could only rely on his eyes to see where the strange fish was heading. The strange fish was fast, and the water was its paradise. From the beginning, it had left Lu Ping far behind. Fortunately, Lu Ping was a blood condensation realm cultivator with strong arcane energy. Coupled with his understanding of water, he didn't get left behind. In the blink of an eye, they had covered a distance of several miles. Lu Ping was getting anxious. The fish in the sea had a natural advantage. If he didn't catch up soon, the strange fish would escape to the demonic beast's territory. Suddenly, Lu Ping remembered that there was a water manipulation technique in the 8 devastating waves that could control water. He was overjoyed and immediately used it. Lu Ping controlled the seawater to form an undercurrent in the sea, pushing him towards the strange fish. At the same time, he stirred the seawater around him. Although he couldn't directly affect the strange fish, the undercurrent in the seawater gradually affected the seawater 400 feet away. The monstrous fish was only a few miles away from the demon race's territorial waters. At that time, it would be able to report its discovery to its own manor lord. However, it suddenly discovered that the surrounding seawater was no longer calm. The turbulent seawater formed undercurrents, both strong and weak, which severely affected its swimming speed. The strange fish panicked. It could only swim forward with all its might. When it looked back, it realized that the human cultivator was only 200 feet away from it. It was horrified. Lu Ping became more and more familiar with the water manipulation technique. He moved faster and faster in the water. At the same time, the strange fish slowed down. When Lu Ping was only 200 feet away from the strange fish, Lu Ping's divine sense could already take the strange fish's life at any time. However, when Lu Ping became more and more interested in the water manipulation technique, he discovered that there were many mysteries in the technique. He couldn't stop and decided to play a game of cat and mouse to familiarize himself with the technique. By the time Lu Ping had familiarized himself with the entire set of cultivation techniques, the strange fish had already lost all its strength from being toyed with by Lu Ping. It flipped its belly over and pretended to be dead in the water. Lu Ping lost interest and stabbed the strange fish to death with his sword. Then, he put away the carcass. It seemed that Debeo was still interested in the fish meat. Lu Ping was about to turn back. Just as he emerged from the sea, he heard the sound of a cultivator wielding a magic tool. At the same time, he heard a faint voice saying, "It's this direction." When I was patrolling the sea, I sensed a fluctuation of arcane energy under the sea. It's heading east. Could it be some treasure? Another voice said, "What treasure? It could be some kind of demonic beast. We're not far from the demonic beast's territory. It's not strange for demonic beasts to occasionally enter our territory." The first voice retorted, "You're right. Last time, our Xianling sect's inner disciples were killed by some demonic beast." Another voice said, "What nonsense are you talking about? It was our Qiao family's senior martial brother Qiao, Sheeping, who chased after a demonic beast that wandered into our territory. But that damn cultivator Jinling got greedy and plotted to kill him." The first voice said in surprise, "So that's how it is. I was wondering why our sect recently asked us to increase our patrolling efforts. So it's because of this. Looks like our Xianling sect is going to teach that Jinling a lesson." The other voice said proudly, "Of course, but our Xianling sect has always been the leader of the North Sea Alliance. Of course, we have to be reasonable. That's why we have to make sure that Jinling doesn't know what to say. That way, they won't be able to raise their heads in the Alliance. We have to give them a chance to admit their mistakes. If Jinling continues to be stubborn, of course, we have to teach them a lesson." By this time, the two of them were already in front of Lu Ping. Suddenly, they saw a man in black standing on the surface of the sea. The first voice startled them, and they asked in panic, "Who are you?" They tried their best to remain calm, but in Lu Ping's ears, it sounded like they were putting on a brave front. Lu Ping chuckled and said, "So this is how your esteemed sect reigns supreme in the North Sea Alliance. Then, let me teach the two of you a lesson first." As soon as he finished speaking, a bolt of light flew across the sky. Just as the two of them were about to soak in it, they suddenly felt the bolt of light piercing through their bodies. After that, they didn't know what happened. Lu Ping curled his lips and burned the corpses into ashes. Then, he picked up their interspatial pouches and flew towards Huangli Island. Along the way, he recalled the conversation between the Xianling sect disciples. He couldn't help but laugh. This must be the explanation that the Xianling sect's leader gave to the Xianling sect disciples after Qiao Shiping's death caused a commotion. It seemed like the Xianling sect's leader didn't want to start a war with Zhenling. Or perhaps he didn't have the confidence to win. However, he needed to give an explanation to the Xianling sect disciples, so he came up with this excuse. However, he didn't think that this excuse would eventually cultivate the Xianling sect disciples' arrogant and pedantic hearts. In the cultivation world, strength was the most important thing. When Lu Ping returned to Huangli Island and arrived at the entrance of his cave abode, he saw a sound-transmitting Dharma sword circling around the cave entrance. Lu Ping reached out and grabbed the Dharma sword. At the same time, he cast a spell on it. Master Immortal Lu's voice sounded from the Dharma sword. Chapter 70. A war is about to break out between the two sections. The disciples stationed on the island are to return to Xianqi Island as soon as possible to await further orders. Lu Ping looked at the sound-transmitting sword in his hand and thought to himself, "It seems like a war is about to break out. Xianling sect is most likely coming this time. Otherwise, Master Immortal Lu wouldn't have issued such an order. It seems like my sect is very well informed in Xianling sect." After restoring the sound-transmitting sword, Lu Ping returned to the cultivation room. Looking at the two storage pouches he looted from the Xianling blood refining realm disciples, Lu Ping couldn't help but smile bitterly. Not all blood refining realm disciples had thousands of spirit stones like him. Lu Ping placed 500 spirit stones into his own storage pouch. Then, he took out some 100-year-old spiritual herbs, a mid-grade mystic artifact, and 3 low-grade mystic artifacts. The rest were some low-grade spiritual materials and a few bottles of blood essence pills. To be fair, the wealth of these two Xianling late blood refining realm disciples was slightly better than that of Zhenling's disciples. After all, Xianling sect was the #1 sect in the North Sea Alliance with 2,000 to 3,000 years of history. The wealth they accumulated was not something that Zhenling could compare to. 2 days later, Lu Ping received another sound-transmitting sword from Master Immortal Lu. This time, it was directed to Lu Ping alone. A few days ago, Xianling sect's patrolling disciples were killed near Huangli Island's waters. We need to prevent Xianling sect from retaliating. Naturally, Lu Ping was touched. Master Immortal Lu was a man with a cold face but a warm heart. This time, he treated Lu Ping as his disciple. However, the murderer of the Xianling sect disciple was Lu Ping himself. Lu Ping was surprised by how fast his sect's information spread. It seemed like his sect had many spies in Xianling sect. In the following period of time, the North Sea calmed down once more. It was as if both sides had suddenly stopped fighting. However, the cultivators near Xianqi Island could still feel an atmosphere of impending war lurking in this strange calm. During this period of peace, Lu Ping made use of the time to cultivate while trying to craft blood condensation realm talismans. After entering the blood condensation realm, due to the emergence of the divine sense, the talisman crafting Lu Ping's talisman crafting skills were no longer useful. Fortunately, these little tricks had laid a good foundation for Lu Ping. To make a blood condensation realm talisman, the first requirement was the skin of a demonic beast in the late blood refining realm or a talisman paper made from similar spiritual materials. The second requirement was the spirit ink, the blood of a blood condensation realm demonic beast or spirit liquid of the same grade as the spirit ink. Lastly, the talisman brush had to be at the blood condensation realm. Fortunately, Lu Ping was prepared. Not only did he have the skin of a late blood-refining realm demonic beast, but he also had the skin of a green sea snake in the blood condensation realm. Both could be used to make talisman papers. The spirit ink could be made from the blood of the first green sea snake he killed. At that time, the amount of spirit blood Lu Ping had collected was enough to fill his jade bottle by 1/10. It weighed about 15 jin. Also, Lu Ping had bought a talisman brush made from the fur of a third-level blood condensation realm silver moon rabbit from the previous auction. After finishing his preparations, Lu Ping took out the 10 talisman papers made from the strange fish. The first thing he needed to make was the invisibility talisman. Today at the entrance of the spirit snake's nest, Lu Ping had actually been exposed by a blood-refining realm demonic beast. This was too embarrassing for him. Therefore, he used the first blood condensation talisman he made into an invisibility talisman. The process of making a blood condensation talisman was much more complicated than a blood-refining talisman. Even though Lu Ping's divine sense was strong, almost on par with a second-level blood condensation realm cultivator, he still broke 4 talisman papers in a row. When he was making the 6th talisman, Lu Ping kept summarizing his failures and finally made an invisibility talisman. However, the faint glow on the talisman made Lu Ping doubt whether this talisman could last for more than half an incense stick's time. As for the remaining 4 talismans, Lu Ping made an invisibility talisman. The glow on the talisman was slightly thicker, and Lu Ping estimated that it could last for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. The skin of the green sea snake was made into 40 talisman papers. After all, it was a blood condensation realm demonic beast and had a huge body. The quality of the talisman papers it made was far better than the fish skin. Originally, Lu Ping didn't plan on using these high-quality talisman papers. Instead, he wanted to learn from those rogue cultivators who hunted blood-refining realm demonic beasts in the demon territory and used their skin to make talisman papers. This way, he could raise his blood condensation talisman production level. However, the current situation had clearly forced Lu Ping to give up on this idea. Perhaps it was due to the quality of the talisman papers. 3 out of 10 invisibility talismans made from the snake skin were successful. Furthermore, the duration of each talisman was longer than the previous 2. Naturally, the remaining talisman papers couldn't all be made into invisibility talismans. Lu Ping used one of them to make a water escape talisman. This was a method for escaping. Out of the 20 talisman papers, he made 4. The remaining 20 were made into water shield talismans. After Lu Ping cultivated the Raging Waves technique, his arcane energy had turned into pure water elemental arcane energy. This way, the defensive Dharma artifact he usually used, the stone tower, couldn't be fully utilized because it was of the earth element. Although its power was still several times stronger than when he was in the blood-refining realm, the enemies he faced had also changed from the blood-refining realm to the blood condensation realm. In the end, he made 5 water shield talismans. By now, 10 days had passed. The difficulty of making talismans in the blood condensation realm was much higher. Lu Ping already spent a lot of time and arcane energy to make 5 talismans a day. Naturally, he wasn't willing to make more because he still needed to spend a lot of time on pill refinement. The reason why Lu Ping persisted in learning pill refinement with his water elemental arcane energy wasn't because of his need for pills. It was because of a method that Pill Master Shang Tao mentioned in the Shang Tao's pill scripture. In the pill scripture, Shang Tao believed that not only cultivators who cultivated both wood and fire could become top-tier pill refiners. The reason for this was the divine sense. Normally, when pill refiners concocted pills, their divine sense was mainly used to monitor the refining process in the furnace. They used fire elemental arcane energy to control the temperature and wood elemental arcane energy to monitor the changes in the medicinal properties of the spirit herbs. However, Shang Tao believed that if a cultivator's divine sense was strong enough, they could use it to partially replace these functions. For example, they could use their divine sense to control the temperature of the flame and the changes in the medicinal properties of the spirit herbs. This idea wasn't unique to Pill Master Shang Tao. In the cultivation world, pill refiners admitted that a strong divine sense was helpful to pill refinement. There were also pill refiners who didn't have wood or fire elemental arcane energy. However, these pill refiners usually had the lowest level of pill refinement. The pill refiner's rank was generally divided into 5 stages: pill refiner apprentice, pill refiner apprentice, pill refiner, high-grade pill refiner, and grandmaster. Most of the outstanding pill refiners were cultivators with wood or fire elemental arcane energy. As for pill refiners who didn't have wood or fire elemental arcane energy, even if their divine sense was stronger than ordinary people, they could only be ordinary pill refiners. The crux of the problem was that Lu Ping's divine sense wasn't strong because of his innate talent. In fact, it was ridiculously strong. Without cultivating any techniques to strengthen the divine sense, his divine sense was twice as strong as an ordinary person's. This was the reason why Lu Ping wanted to become a pill refiner. In fact, he wanted to become a pill refiner that was even better than ordinary pill refiners. This fact seemed to have been verified when Lu Ping concocted his first batch of blood condensation realm pills. When Lu Ping was still in the blood refining realm, he had already tried to concoct mid-blood refining realm pills. With a large amount of spirit herbs, his success rate stabilized at around 20 to 30%. However, with the help of Lu Ping's divine sense, his first batch of blood purification pills for mid-blood refining realm pills reached a success rate of 40%. This made Lu Ping extremely happy. Chapter 71. Looking at the 4 blood purification pills in the furnace, Lu Ping was quite excited. As long as he could achieve a 50% success rate, he could try to refine pills for the late blood refining realm. In his excitement, Lu Ping rested for a day and began his attempt to refine pills again. The refining time for a mid-blood refining realm pill was about 2 days. This was mainly due to the powerful effect of the heaven and earth spirit treasure in Lu Ping's possession, the high-grade profound blue spirit fire, and the mid-grade alchemy furnace. Ultimately, it was also due to the legacy of alchemist Shang Tao. After that, Lu Ping basically rested for a day after every cauldron of medicinal pellets he concocted. After 2 months, Lu Ping finally stabilized his success rate at 40% after concocting 20 cauldrons of medicinal pellets. This couldn't be rushed. Unfortunately, these 20 furnaces of pills had exhausted the spiritual herbs in Lu Ping's hands. Moreover, Lu Ping could not leave his post and go to the market to purchase spiritual herbs. In desperation, he could only try to refine the blood essence pill for the late blood refining realm in advance. The first furnace of pills almost made Lu Ping go crazy. Looking at the only blood essence pill in the furnace and the dregs around it, Lu Ping wanted to cry but had no tears. He only collected 15 furnaces of spiritual herbs for the blood essence pill and 20 furnaces of blood purification pill. Lu Ping spent more than 1,000 spirit stones, but he only got this result. It was inevitable that Lu Ping felt a little disheartened. Fortunately, in the next 14 furnaces of pills, Lu Ping maintained the success rate at 30%. Only then did he manage to calm down. Producing 10 pills from 1 furnace of spiritual herbs was a standard for alchemy. In fact, a skilled alchemist could often refine more than 10 pills. Of course, it was difficult for Lu Ping to accept such a low success rate. Fortunately, he understood that alchemy was a profession that burned spirit stones for a long time, not to mention that his talent was not comparable to others. On this day, Lu Ping was observing the 3 green sea snake eggs in the spirit beast room. These 3 spirit snakes had been fully recovered by the time Lu Ping returned to Huangli Island. As Lu Ping continued to incubate them with spiritual energy, the vitality in the eggs became stronger and stronger. It was not long before they hatched. At this moment, Lu Ping's face froze. He suddenly turned and looked outside the cave abode. Just now, the array formation outside the cave abode had been triggered. Someone had sneaked into Huangli Island. At this time, which sect could it be? It seemed like the war between the 2 sects had begun. The people who sneaked into Huangli Island were the 2 blood condensation cultivators from Xinling sect. Xinling sect had sent their disciples to wipe out the cultivators stationed on the small islands near Xianxi Island. According to their intel, the cultivators stationed on Huangli Island had already reached the blood condensation realm. Just to be safe, Xinling sect had sent 2 blood condensation inner disciples to kill Lu Ping. Lu Ping stood in front of his cave abode, looking at the 2 approaching cultivators. The two from Xinling's sect thought that Lu Ping would run away the moment he saw them. That was why they snuck into Huangli Island. They were afraid that Lu Ping would realize that he was not their enemy and run away. If that happened, they would lose out on a share of the spoils of war. However, when they arrived at Lu Ping's cave abode, they discovered that Lu Ping was already waiting for them there. The two were slightly surprised, but they remembered that Lu Ping was just a blood condensation cultivator. Since he had already seen through their disguise, they decided to just walk up to him and scrutinize him. The taller of the two said arrogantly, "Brat, are you Zhenling's disciple? If you know what's good for you, hand over your storage bag, and we might let you keep your life." Lu Ping scanned the two with his divine sense. One of them was a first-layer blood condensation cultivator, while the other was a second-layer blood condensation cultivator. He chuckled coldly and said, "You two sure talk big. How dare you trespass on my Zhenling Island without my sect's permission and threaten my inner disciple? I think you two are the ones who are tired of living." The taller cultivator sneered coldly and said, "Yes, I am threatening you. So what? Hee, you still want Zhenling to stand up for you? I'm afraid Xianqi Island is about to be conquered by our Xinling sect." Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. The other cultivator said, "Senior brother, why are you wasting your breath on him? This time, our Xinling sect is attacking Xianqi Island. Let's get rid of him quickly and rush to Xianqi Island. Maybe we can get a share of the spoils." The taller cultivator shouted, "You're right." He took out a copper staff and swung it at Lu Ping. The shorter cultivator's mystic instrument was a pair of mid-grade goose feather swords. The two swords spun up and down, turning into a wheel of blades that slashed at Lu Ping. If it hit its target, it would instantly chop Lu Ping into 17 or 18 pieces. Unhurriedly, Lu Ping threw out the Flying Swallow sword and cast the rock-piercing sword skill. The Flying Swallow sword flew in the air and suddenly turned into a huge wave that rushed towards the two mystic instruments. It parried the copper rods, and in the blink of an eye, it clashed with the two goose feather sabers for a dozen times and shattered one of the sabers into pieces. The two Xinling sect cultivators regrouped and attacked Lu Ping again. One smashed at his head while the other slashed at his waist. One attacked from above, one attacked from below. Their coordination was perfect. Lu Ping didn't want to be outdone. He used the flying stone-piercing sword technique to create a huge wave. The Flying Swallow sword seemed to turn into a stream of water that protected him. It was like a flood that was blocked by a dam, but it also accumulated its strength. When the mystic instruments slowed down, Lu Ping immediately counterattacked. The two Xinling sect cultivators suddenly realized that Lu Ping's counterattack was like a monstrous wave crashing towards them, carrying the power of heaven and earth. They couldn't defend against it. They felt like two small islands in the middle of a flood, teetering on the brink of being swallowed by the huge wave at any time. This was the first time Lu Ping didn't use any tricks or sneak attacks. He fought head-on against two blood condensation realm cultivators, 1 against 2, and one of them was a level higher than him. Lu Ping had never displayed his full strength without using his trump card. There was an indescribable sense of satisfaction in his heart. His sword technique became more and more powerful. Many things that he didn't understand before suddenly became clear to him, and he displayed the state of force to its fullest. At the climax of the battle, Lu Ping's aura suddenly climbed to its peak. He exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, turning it into a long, clear whistle that traveled for miles. At this moment, the two Xinling sect cultivators regretted accepting this task more and more. What kind of monster was this? He had clearly just entered the blood condensation realm, but his arcane energy was so strong. One of them was in the second layer, while the other was in the first layer. Both of them had accumulated arcane energy for 2 years, but now they were being suppressed by their opponent. Not to mention, Lu Ping's sword technique was majestic. It was obvious that he had comprehended the state of force. How were they supposed to compete? No wonder he didn't run away. He was waiting for the two Xinling sect cultivators to come to him. Fear arose in their hearts, and the urge to retreat also arose. The two Xinling sect cultivators looked at each other and shouted at the same time. They threw 2 mid-grade mystic artifacts at Lu Ping, and at the same time, they each took out a defensive mystic artifact. A flying sword and a round plate appeared beneath their feet. These were the two flying mystic artifacts. Ignoring the incoming sword wave, they turned and ran. Lu Ping laughed and said, "If I let the two of you run away today, how can I show off my skills?" As soon as he finished speaking, his sword technique changed. The flying swallow sword split into two huge waves, and in an instant, dozens of sword rays slashed at the same spot of the two Xianling sect cultivators' defensive mystic artifacts. In an instant, the two mystic artifacts were shattered. Chapter 72. The two Xianling sect disciples' interspatial pouches contained a total of nearly 4,000 spirit stones. Lu Ping wasn't too interested in the low-grade mystic instruments, but he liked the pair of goose feather sabers. There was also a technique in the Raging Waves 8 Absolutes that allowed one to wield two swords, so he could use the goose feather sabers instead. There was only one bottle of 1,000 ginseng pills for the blood condensation realm, which was a pleasant surprise. Currently, Lu Ping didn't lack blood condensation realm cultivation pills. In Shang Tao's cave abode, Lu Ping also obtained 4 bottles of blood condensation realm pills. 2 of them were high-grade pills for early blood condensation cultivators, which suited Lu Ping's needs. The other 2 bottles were ordinary pills for mid-blood condensation cultivators. Lu Ping treated them like treasures and kept them carefully. He couldn't stay on Huangli Island any longer. Xianling sect had lost 2 blood condensation cultivators at once. They would definitely be alerted. He had to leave immediately. From the conversation between the 2 Xianling sect disciples, Lu Ping knew that Xianxi Island was the main target of Xianling sect's attack. At this moment, Xianxi Island was surrounded by enemies. If he returned to Xianxi Island, he would be walking right into their trap. He couldn't go to Xianhua Island either. It was the closest Zhengling Island to Xianxi Island. Since Xianling sect dared to attack Xianxi Island, they had to stop Xianling's reinforcements. That place was likely to be extremely dangerous. Lu Ping thought about it for a long time. He felt as if he had been abandoned, unable to return home. While Xianling sect was besieging Xianxi Island, they had dispatched their cultivators to eliminate the cultivators stationed on the nearby islands. Judging from the 2 Xianling cultivators sent by Huangli Island, Xianling sect had a certain understanding of the cultivators stationed on the 16 islands near Xianxi Island, and they had made arrangements to deal with them. However, they would never have thought that there would be a mistake at Huangli Island. Then, would he be able to give them a taste of their own medicine and launch a counterattack to kill these cultivators who were sent to the various small islands? If that was the case, he needed to act as soon as possible. If he was late, or if Xianling sect completed their mission, or if Xianling's cultivators retreated early, his trip would be in vain. Lu Ping put all the things in the cave abode into his storage bag. Then, he slashed at the top of the cliff with his sword, and the falling boulders and dirt covered the entrance of the cave abode tightly. It looked like he was going to destroy the cave abode after a battle. Then, he flew towards Huangyu Island, which was the closest to him. As soon as he left Huangli Island, Lu Ping noticed that he was being followed. Fortunately, the person didn't know that Lu Ping's divine sense was different from ordinary people. He thought that he was hiding in the sea, and the seawater could obstruct his divine sense. However, Lu Ping used a water manipulation art and trapped him in the sea. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape from Lu Ping. When Lu Ping saw that it was a blood-refining realm monster shrimp, he pondered for a moment. Then, he waved his hands and the monster shrimp's arched body suddenly stiffened. Then, it stopped breathing and was sent into the spirit beast pouch for Debeo to eat. It seemed that the battle between Zhenling and Xianling sect had attracted the attention of the North Sea's monster clans. Huangyu Island was peaceful. Ever since Lin Shang was robbed by Lu Ping and became the laughingstock of the side courtyard, he didn't cause any trouble for Lu Ping for the past 2 years. He had been cultivating diligently on Huangyu Island, and it was said that he had made great progress and was preparing to enter the blood condensation realm. For the past few years, the side hall's grade 3 disciples who had reached the late blood refining realm would be sent to Xianxi Island and the nearby mini-islands to train. Other than the disciples stationed on Xianxi Island, there were 5 disciples stationed on the 16 mini-islands, including himself, who had reached the blood condensation realm. Group 7 consisted of Yao Yong, Du Feng, and Lu Ping. Lu Ping could be considered familiar with Huangyu Island. He didn't find any traces of Lin Sheng's residence on the island, and there were no signs of battle either. It seemed like Lin Sheng knew something was amiss and escaped. At the Spirit Stone Mine on the island, 3 Xianling sect 9th layer blood refining realm disciples were intercepted by Lu Ping. The Xianling sect disciples, who were originally venting their anger on the miners because of Lin Sheng's escape, saw a Jinling blood condensation realm cultivator and immediately started begging for mercy. Naturally, Lu Ping didn't hold back. Unlike Lu Ping, these 3 disciples didn't have the ability to challenge a blood condensation realm cultivator when they were still in the blood refining realm. They were killed by Lu Ping with a wave of his hand, and their interspatial pouches and the hundreds of spirit stones in the mine were taken by Lu Ping instead. After asking the miners, Lu Ping found out that Lin Sheng retreated the moment he realized he couldn't defeat the Xianling sect disciples. After leaving Huangli Island, Lu Ping thought to himself, killing these blood-refining realm disciples really isn't worth much. These 3 Xianling sect disciples only had a total of 700 spirit stones and 3 to 5 low-grade mystic artifacts. No wonder Lin Sheng could escape so easily. Since that's the case, I should go to the other 4 blood condensation realm senior brothers islands to take a look. Lu Ping headed west. About 200 miles away was Huanglin Island, where Du Feng was stationed. He arrived at Huanglin Island in the blink of an eye. However, Lu Ping missed his target again. After asking the mortals on the island, he found out that 2 hours ago, the island's elder immortal was chased by 2 Xianling sect disciples. When Lu Ping heard that Du Feng's life was not in danger, but he was no match for the 2 Xianling sect disciples, Lu Ping didn't stop and headed north to lend Du Feng a hand. Just as Lu Ping was about 10 miles north, he suddenly saw a Xianling sect disciple flying towards him. The Xianling sect disciple also saw the Jinling robe on Lu Ping's body and was surprised. However, when he used his divine sense to find out that Lu Ping was only a first-layer blood condensation realm cultivator, he heaved a sigh of relief. At that moment, a female voice suddenly came from behind the Xianling sect disciple. "Junior brother Lu, save me." Lu Ping was taken aback. Only now did he notice that the Xianling sect disciple was carrying a cloth bag on his back. The surface of the bag was wriggling, clearly carrying a person. The voice sounded familiar, clearly someone he knew, but he couldn't remember who it was. When the Xianling sect disciple heard the voice of the person on his back, his expression changed. Without saying a word, he took out a metal wheel. This metal wheel was 2 feet in diameter and was surrounded by sharp spikes. As it spun, it emitted a piercing whistle as it flew towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping's divine sense wasn't any weaker than the Xianling sect disciples. He could tell that the Xianling sect disciple was a second-layer blood condensation realm cultivator, and his pale face was obviously injured. Lu Ping didn't hold back. Up until now, he had only familiarized himself with the stone-piercing sword technique and the water manipulation art of the Raging Waves 8 Extremes. Although he had practiced the other 6 techniques, he hadn't tested them in actual combat. Now, he had a target to test them on. With a wave of his hands, Lu Ping cast out the pair of goose feather sabers he had looted earlier and cast out the Raging Waves Crashing Shore. The 2 mystic instruments, one in front and one behind, turned into 2 tidal waves that surged towards the Xianling sect cultivators like the waves behind pushing the waves ahead of them. By the time Lu Ping had familiarized himself with executing the Raging Waves Crashing Shore technique, the Xianling sect disciple had already been toyed with by Lu Ping to the point where he could only inhale and not exhale. Chapter 73. The person in the pouch was Hu Lily. Lu Ping had met her 3 times. The first time was at the side courtyard's trade fair, where he exchanged dozens of talismans for blood-solidifying pills. The second time was at the Reef Island where Shang Tao's cave was located. Lu Ping secretly saw Hu Lily and her group of 3 exploring Shang Tao's cave. That time, Hu Lily's profound knowledge and understanding of formations left a deep impression on Lu Ping. The third time was at the Dikuan Island auction. Lu Ping saw Hu Lily in a private room. She also suspected that Lu Ping was at the auction, but she didn't expect him to be in a private room. Hu Lili originally thought that although the Xianling sect cultivator was a second-layer blood condensation realm cultivator, his strength was greatly reduced after being injured. As long as Lu Ping kept tangling with him, she would become a burden to the Xianling sect cultivator. In a desperate attempt to get rid of Lu Ping, the Xianling sect cultivator might let her go first. That way, she would have a chance to escape. However, Hu Lili didn't expect Lu Ping to be so powerful. In just an instant's time, he exhausted the Xianling sect cultivator to death. The technique that Lu Ping used contained a realm that she didn't understand. Could it be the realm of force? Hu Lili was secretly shocked. According to her knowledge, there weren't many late blood condensation cultivators who could comprehend this realm. Looking at Lu Ping, who was tidying up the spoils of war, Hu Lili said sweetly, "Master Lu, Master Immortal Lu, Hu Lili thanks you for saving my life." Lu Ping was in a good mood after obtaining 2,900 spirit stones and a bottle of 1,000 ginseng pills. He smiled and said, "Senior apprentice sister Hu, just call me junior apprentice brother. If you call me Master Immortal, I'll feel uncomfortable." Hu Lili giggled and told Lu Ping about her experience. As it turned out, Hu Lili had stayed on Xinqi Island after failing to explore Sheng Tao's cave abode. She had to prepare for the blood condensation realm, and her magic power still needed to be tempered. Thus, she asked Xinqi Island's immortal Master Shang for an errand. It just so happened that a disciple stationed on a miniature island had returned to the true spirit side courtyard due to some matters, so Hu Lili took his place. After Xianling sect declared war on Xinqi Island, Hu Lili immediately retreated from the island. Considering the uncertain situation on Xinqi Island, she flew towards Huangqing Island, which was the nearest island to her. Yao Yong was already a blood condensation cultivator, so Hu Lili naturally wanted to join forces with him. Unexpectedly, outside of Huangqing Island, Hu Lili happened to meet Yao Yong, who had retreated from the island. Obviously, Yao Yong had encountered the same treatment as Lu Ping. Helpless, the two of them could only fly to Yellow Forest Island to meet up with Du Feng. However, when they saw Du Feng, who had suffered the same fate as Yao Yong, they realized that the three of them were surrounded by 4 blood condensation cultivators from Xianling sect. After a fierce battle, Hu Lili was captured. The Xianling sect cultivator who had captured Hu Lili was careless and injured by Du Feng due to his lust for Hu Lili's beauty. However, Du Feng's injuries were even more serious than the cultivator. Yao Yong took advantage of the fact that the Xianling sect cultivator's encirclement was broken and rushed out with the injured Du Feng. The cultivator who had captured Hu Lili wanted to return to Xianling sect because of his injuries and Hu Lili's beauty. The remaining 3 cultivators still had the upper hand in terms of strength, not to mention that Du Feng was seriously injured. Thus, the 3 of them decided to continue their pursuit of Yao Yong and Du Feng. What happened next was that the injured Xianling sect cultivator encountered Lu Ping, who had gone to Yellow Forest Island to look for Du Feng. Lu Ping easily dealt with the 2 of them. After listening to Hu Lili's story, Lu Ping pondered for a moment and said, "Senior martial sister Hu, I need to go after the 3 Xianling sect cultivators to help my 2 senior martial brothers. If it's not convenient for you, you can find a place to cultivate for a while. When the situation has calmed down, you can return to Xinqi Island." Hu Lili smiled and said, "I'm afraid the sea around Xinqi Island has already been sealed by Xianling sect. There's no safe place here. It's better to follow an expert like you to look for Yao Yong, Du Feng, and the other disciples stationed on the island. If we can work together, we might be able to survive in this sea." Lu Ping agreed with Hu Lili, so he led Hu Lili in the direction that Yao Yong and Du Feng escaped to. At this moment, Yao Yong and Du Feng could only be described as battered and exhausted. After Du Feng was seriously injured, Yao Yong had to take care of him along the way, so his arcane energy was greatly depleted. Seeing that the 3 Xianling sect cultivators were about to catch up, Du Feng's expression was still cold. He said, "Senior martial brother, go first. I'll hold them off for a while. Otherwise, no one will be able to escape." Yao Yong took a deep breath and swallowed a spiritual recovery pill. He cursed, "Shut up, don't waste my arcane energy." With that, he dragged Du Feng and flew even faster. Du Feng knew that Yao Yong was already an arrow at the end of its flight. However, He also knew that Yao Yong had always valued loyalty. Otherwise, Yao Yong, who always paid attention to his image in front of his junior martial brothers, wouldn't have cursed him after hearing Du Feng's words. Du Feng could only secretly circulate his cultivation technique to heal his injuries. He hoped that after the 3 Xianling sect cultivators caught up, he would at least have some capital to fight them. However, his injuries this time were too severe. Without a good healing pill, it would take at least 3 to 5 months of rest for him to fully recover. Yao Yong finally stopped flying forward. Since he couldn't escape, he might as well recover some arcane energy to fight the Xianling sect cultivators. Seeing that Yao Yong and Du Feng had stopped running, the 3 Xianling sect cultivators cautiously surrounded them. Their experience of breaking through the pincer attack of 4 people and injuring one of them told them that the 2 Xianling cultivators in front of them were not weaklings. They had methods that could seriously injure cultivators with higher cultivation than them. Yao Yong and Du Feng stood back to back. Yao Yong took out a brick-like mystic instrument while Du Feng took out a flying sword. However, the flying sword swayed a little in the air. Obviously, his injuries had affected the circulation of his arcane energy. Lu Ping brought Hu Lili and rushed in the direction that Yao Yong and Du Feng escaped. The flying mystic instrument under his feet had long been replaced with a mid-grade flying sword that he obtained from Huangli Island. Hu Lili was also standing on Lu Ping's flying sword. Looking at the seawater receding rapidly on both sides, she was secretly surprised by Lu Ping's flying speed and profound arcane energy. In just the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Lu Ping could clearly hear the roaring of spells and the clashing of mystic instruments in front of him. Lu Ping let out a long howl towards the sky. The flying sword under his feet sped up again, leaving a clear mark on the seawater below. White waves splashed on both sides, like a piece of cloth that had been cut open. Hu Lili stood behind Lu Ping, covering her ears tightly. Her delicate face was slightly furrowed. Du Feng had already fallen at Yao Yong's feet. Panting heavily, Yao Yong tried his best to protect Du Feng from harm. There were already 2 cuts on his body. Blood splattered on his face, but he didn't have time to wipe it off. Suddenly, a long howl came from behind the Xianling sect cultivator. Yao Yong recognized Lu Ping's voice, and his face lit up with joy. One of the Xianling sect cultivators quickly separated from the rest and stood guard behind them. 2 to 3 miles away, a flying sword with 2 people on it sped towards them. When the Xianling sect cultivator saw that one of the people on the sword was the female cultivator Jinling who was captured earlier, he didn't even have time to warn his companions before he saw a tiny red light stabbing towards his heart. The Xianling sect cultivator only had time to block it with the mystic instrument in his hand. A crisp sound rang out, and an irresistible arcane energy surged towards him. The Xianling sect cultivator couldn't help but take a step back. The mystic instrument in his hand was knocked away, but the red light was also deflected. A flying needle stabbed into the Xianling sect cultivator's shoulder. Ignoring the pain, the Xianling sect cultivator was about to warn his companions when he suddenly felt a strange vibration coming from the flying needle in his shoulder. The needle suddenly exploded, blowing half of the Xianling sect cultivator's body into pieces. Chapter 74. A one-hit kill. A first-layer blood condensation cultivator from Xianling sect was killed by Lu Ping in a one-hit kill. Not only were the 2 remaining Xianling cultivators shocked, but Hu Lili, Yao Yong, and Du Feng were also shocked. The 2 Xianling cultivators were scared out of their wits. They turned around and tried to escape, but Lu Ping raised his goose feather sabers. 2 waves of saber light flashed and blocked one of the cultivators. Yao Yong mustered his courage and used a brick to tie down the other cultivator. Hu Lili also took out a mid-grade flying sword to help. The Xianling cultivator fighting Lu Ping had lost his morale. His arcane energy was not strong enough, and his sword techniques were not as good as Lu Ping's. In an instant, he was dismembered by Lu Ping's sabers. The remaining cultivator desperately wanted to escape. He did not hesitate to expose his back to Yao Yong as he desperately flew towards the south. However, he neglected Hu Lili. Although she was only a 9th-layer blood refining realm cultivator, she was quite famous in the outer sect of Zhenling. Her arcane energy was naturally not weak. Although she was not as strong as a blood condensation cultivator, a flying sword flew past and stopped the cultivator for a moment. At the same time, Yao Yong's brick descended from the sky and smashed the cultivator into meat paste. On a small reef island in the sea, Lu Ping and the other three were resting. They were preparing to discuss the situation of Xianqi Island and their future plans. Lu Ping obtained 2 storage pouches. Initially, he wanted to share them with the 4 of them, but the 3 of them refused. Lu Ping knew that the 3 of them were proud people, so he did not force them. He sat at the side and looked at the spoils of war. The 2 he killed this time were slightly richer. Lu Ping obtained a total of 5,000 spirit stones. For the first time in his life, Lu Ping had more than 10,000 spirit stones in his hands. Lu Ping couldn't help but feel a little proud of himself. The blood condensation realm pills were still as few as before. There were only a dozen of them, but it was enough to make Lu Ping a little excited. On the other hand, Lu Ping wasn't interested in mid-grade magic tools anymore. He just casually threw them into his storage pouch. The other cultivator's storage pouch was divided among Yao Yong's group of 3. Yao Yong and Du Feng did not feel anything, but Hu Lily was incomparably excited. Lu Ping took out a red jade bottle from his storage pouch and handed it to Du Feng. Inside were 3 essence-repairing pills, the best healing pills for blood condensation cultivators. Du Feng's eyes lit up. He immediately swallowed one and said, "Good stuff. After 3 days, you can recover 80% of your strength." Lu Ping smiled and threw a bottle of medicinal pellets to Yao Yong. Yao Yong opened the bottle and saw a total of 10 top-grade essence-replenishing pellets. These were top-grade medicinal pellets that could restore arcane energy in the body. Yao Yong immediately swallowed one and said, "Junior Marshal Brother Lu, you have quite a lot of good stuff in your hands." At this point, the 4 of them had gone through thick and thin with each other, so they spoke more casually than before. Lu Ping chuckled and said, "I was lucky to buy it on Dekuan Island, but it's a pity that I spent so many spirit stones." At this time, Hu Lily, who had been puking on the side for a long time, walked over and said, "The way you 2 killed people is really unique. One chopped people into a dozen pieces, and the other smashed people into meat patties. I really don't dare to compliment you." Lu Ping and Yao Yong laughed. Even Du Feng, who was sitting on the side, had a smile on his face. The 4 of them sat together and recounted their experiences in detail. After summarizing the information they knew and guessed, Yao Yong said, "Tell me, what should we do next?" Hu Lily knew that she was the weakest in this small group of 4. If she didn't want to be a burden, she had to show her ability. Although Yao Yong and the other 2 were not from any faction, Hu Lily had her own pride. She said, "It's obvious that Xinling sect didn't start a war with us at the border like we thought. Instead, they chose Xianqi Island as their main target. In that case, Xinling Island must be surrounded by Xinling sect, and both sides must be engaged in a fierce battle. After all, Enlightened Master Chu and the other core forging realm experts are on the island, and there's also the island's protective formation. Xinling sect won't be able to breach the island in a short period of time. Therefore, Xinling sect must be wary of Xinling sect's reinforcements from other directions." Yao Yong frowned and said, "In other words, we won't be able to return to Xianqi Island or any of our smaller islands in a short period of time, and we might be pursued by Xinling sect's experts?" Hu Lily frowned and nodded. "What should we do?" Du Feng's injuries had recovered a little. He suddenly asked, "What should we do?" Hu Lily's face lit up when she heard that. She knew that everyone had agreed with her analysis, which also meant that they had acknowledged her position in the group. She said, "First of all, we have to be discreet. We have to circle around Xianqi Island's waters without being discovered by Xinling sect cultivators. If they find us, we have to kill them. Secondly, we have to rescue the cultivators on the other islands to strengthen our forces. Other than the 3 of you, there are still 2 blood condensation cultivators on the other islands. This will ensure our strength. Lastly, we have to search for Xinling sect's lone blood condensation cultivators and kill them to weaken Xinling sect's forces." Lu Ping said, "Won't that alert the higher-ups of Xinling sect, and they will send out their experts to surround us?" Hu Lily smiled confidently and said, "Yes, We need them to send out their experts. Hu Lili saw that other than Lu Ping, Yao Yong and Du Feng were confused. She said, Xianling's sex attack is focused on the element of surprise. If they can't break through Xianqi Island within a certain period of time, our sect will react and send reinforcements. At that time, it will be hard to tell who will win. Hu Lili paused for a moment to organize her thoughts. Then, she continued, Xianling's sect wants to besiege Xianqi Island. First, they must set up an array formation outside the island to cut off the teleportation formation on the island. If we can lure a few experts from Xianqi Island over, the pressure on the island will lessen. If a few blood condensation cultivators risk their lives to break through the island's protective formation and destroy the teleportation formation, our sect's experts will be able to rush over through the teleportation formation. Xianqi Island's siege will be easily solved, and Xianling's sect's plan will be foiled. Yao Yong and Du Feng were impressed by Hu Lili's plan and explanation. Lu Ping said, This is what we call guerrilla warfare at sea. Hu Lili paused for a moment, then smiled and said, Guerrilla warfare? That's the right term. Lu Ping calmed himself down and thought for a moment. He said, I'm afraid there will be more variables this time. I've already been tailed by blood-refining realm monsters twice in the sea. If the North Sea monster clans interfere, won't they be the fisherman who reaps all the benefits? Hearing Lu Ping's words, the originally relaxed atmosphere tensed up again. Hu Lili thought for a moment and said, We need to find a way to inform the cultivators on Xianqi Island of our plan. If the seniors on the island are prepared, the losses won't be too great. Xianling's sect will be the one to be caught off guard. That's good too. Once the monster clans interfere, the two sects will definitely stop fighting under the mediation of the North Sea. At that time, Xianling's sect will be the one to suffer the most. Chapter 75. For the next 2 days, the four of them carefully hid their tracks and roamed around the 16 islands in the sea around Xianqi Island. Since Lu Ping had a detailed map of Xianqi Island, it didn't take much effort for the four of them to rescue the 5 disciples who were being hunted or captured. The 15 Xianling blood refining realm disciples were naturally killed. On the evening of the second day, they finally encountered one of the 2 blood condensation realm disciples. At that time, he was already on the verge of death and was only relying on his willpower to fly. The 2 cultivators who were chasing him were easily dealt with by Lu Ping, Yao Yong, and Du Feng, who had mostly recovered from his injuries. On the third day, Lu Ping's group, which had expanded to 10 people, didn't find any other cultivators on the island. Instead, they encountered 2 Xianling blood condensation cultivators who were patrolling nearby. The group rushed forward and captured the 2 cultivators. Hu Lili separated the 2 cultivators on a reef island and forced them to tell her the details of Xianling's sect's attack on Xianqi Island. If they said anything different, they would be smashed into meat paste. Regarding this, Yao Yong specially demonstrated the power of his brick to the 2 cultivators. He smashed a Xianling blood refining realm disciple he captured the day before, causing the 2 Xianling blood refining realm cultivators to vomit a mouthful of blood. The 2 cultivators were straightforward and told everything they knew, hoping to survive. Hu Lili saw that the 2 cultivators told the same story, so she ordered Du Feng to cripple their cultivation and leave them on the reef island to fend for themselves. Through their narration, Hu Lili and the others learned that there were a total of 10 blood condensation realm cultivators from Xianling's sect who were tasked to clear out the 16 islands. They were tasked to deal with 5 Xianling sect blood condensation realm cultivators, while the remaining 11 blood refining realm disciples were dealt with by 33 blood refining realm disciples. However, after 3 days, only 2 of the 10 blood condensation realm cultivators had returned, and more than half of the 33 blood refining realm disciples were gone. This immediately alerted Xianling's sect. They believed that there must be another expert in Xianling that escaped their net. This person should be at least a mid-blood condensation cultivator, or else he wouldn't be able to kill 8 early blood condensation cultivators in a row. Of course, it was impossible for him to be a core forging cultivator. If he was, he would have already killed his way to Xianqi Island or escaped Xianling's sect's blockade. To stop a core forging cultivator, it would take at least 3 cultivators of the same level. If he wanted to leave, 1 or 2 cultivators of the same level wouldn't be able to stop him. Xianling sect had already sent out 2 teams of 10 blood condensation cultivators, each led by a late blood condensation cultivator. By now, the attacks from the blood condensation experts on Xianxi Island had weakened, but Xianling sect's core forging enlightened masters still had the advantage in numbers. Jinling was still relying on the island's defensive formation to defend Xianxi Island. Hu Lili called Lu Ping and the other 3 blood condensation cultivators over and explained the situation on Xianxi Island. The situation has changed again. Xianling sect has sent out 2 late blood condensation cultivators to search for us. They won't expect us to sneak into Xianxi Island. What's more, Xianling sect's core forging enlightened masters still have the advantage in numbers. Furthermore, Xianling sect has already sensed that the cultivators on Xianxi Island would try to destroy the teleportation formation. They're already prepared. If the blood condensation cultivators on the island rashly try to destroy the teleportation formation, they might fall into Xianling sect's trap. The blood condensation cultivator Lu Ping and the rest rescued was Zhongjian from Group 2. He was one of the 4 heroes of the side hall, along with Yao Yong. Initially, Zhongjian didn't understand why a blood-refining cultivator like Hu Lili would be in charge of this group. However, after seeing how well Hu Lili handled everything and how wise she was, Zhongjian couldn't help but admire her. Thus, he tacitly agreed to Hu Lili's position in this 0-hour group. Hearing Hu Lili's description of the situation, Zhongjian asked anxiously, "What should we do?" Hu Lili hesitated and said, "Unless we destroy the ceiling formation." Yao Yong quickly shook his head. "We can't do that. Putting aside the fact that we're weak, Xianling sect isn't stupid. Since they know of our existence, how could they only guard against the cultivators on Xianxi Island?" Lu Ping smacked his lips and said, "We can divert their attention in another direction." Hu Lili's eyes lit up. "What do you mean?" Lu Ping said, "Do any of you have the sound transmission magic sword of the cultivators on the island?" This was indeed for the 3 blood condensation cultivators. The sound transmission magic sword could only be used by blood condensation cultivators. Zhongjian asked curiously, "I have one. Why would we use it? Xianxi Island is surrounded. If we use it, won't our location be exposed?" Hu Lili giggled and said, "That's exactly what we're going to do. Now that we have a way to divert Xianling sect's attention, there are only 2 problems left. First, who will be the bait? Second, how can we break the ceiling formation?" Hearing Hu Lili's words, everyone couldn't help but think carefully. Hu Lili hesitated and said, "I've done some research on the ceiling formation. I know how to break it in the shortest time. So, we can only go to Xianxi Island." Hu Lili's cultivation was weak, so they didn't want her to be the bait. Besides, without her guidance, it would take a lot of effort to break the ceiling formation. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, "Leave the bait to me. The rest of you work together to break the ceiling formation." Yao Yong jumped up and said, "I'll go with you." Lu Ping was touched. "Senior martial brother, there's no need. The fewer people, the better. Besides, I have a few escape tools. The more people there are, the better it is to break the formation." Du Feng stood up and patted Lu Ping's shoulder. "Junior martial brother is right. He is the strongest among us. He has the highest chance of survival." Then he turned to Lu Ping and said, "If anything happens to junior martial brother, I, Du Feng, swear to the heavens that for the rest of my life, I will make sure that every Xianling sect core forging cultivator and above dies with junior martial brother." Yao Yong also said excitedly, "Me too." Lu Ping knew that Du Feng was not a talkative person. Today, he said so much to show his friendship. Not to mention, he made a solemn vow. Lu Ping smiled and said, "Don't underestimate me, Lu Ping. If I'm not confident, I wouldn't dare to recommend myself." Zhongjian passed the sound transmission sword to Lu Ping and took out a talisman. He hesitated for a moment and passed it to Lu Ping. "Junior martial brother Lu, this is the only life-saving talisman my ancestor left me. I'll give it to you today." Lu Ping took the talisman. It was a blood escape talisman. The talisman was glowing. It was a blood condensation realm talisman. Lu Ping declined. "Since this is senior martial brother's ancestor's item, how can I borrow it?" Zhongjian put on a straight face and said, I know Junior Marshall Brother is an expert in talisman crafting. I was thinking of asking Junior Marshall Brother to pay me back. Since Junior Marshall Brother is so stingy, I won't lend it to you." He pretended to ask Lu Ping for the talisman. No one expected Zhong Jian to crack a joke, and they were all amused. Lu Ping laughed and said, "Since Senior Marshall Brother is willing to give it to me, how can I return it? I will remember this favor." Lu Ping was about to leave when he suddenly remembered something. He turned around and asked, "Senior Marshall Brother Zhong, who is this sound transmission sword for?" Zhong Jin blushed and said, "This is for Senior Marshall Sister Ma Yu." When everyone saw Zhong Jin's expression, they burst into laughter again. Chapter 76. Everyone divided their tasks and were about to disperse when Yao Yong suddenly said, "We were only thinking about breaking the formation, but we didn't think about whether the formation itself could be broken with our cultivation base. If our spells and magic tools were useless, wouldn't it be a waste of effort?" Everyone was stunned when they heard this. They had forgotten about this problem and didn't know what to do. Lu Ping thought for a moment and handed something to Yao Yong. Yao Yong opened his hand and looked at it. He exclaimed, "A talisman treasure." Everyone looked at Lu Ping in surprise. Lu Ping was straightforward and said, "I found it on a reef island. I suspect it was left on the island by the sea snake monster when it killed the Qiao clan's second young master, Qiao Xieying. Qiao Xieying didn't have the time to activate it and left it there." Everyone praised Lu Ping's good luck. The cause of this incident was Hu Lily. They had heard about the incident, but they didn't know that Lu Ping was on the reef island, ready to be the fisherman, and didn't arrive after the incident. Hu Lily looked at Lu Ping meaningfully. Lu Ping knew that Hu Lily would doubt him, but now was not the time to care about this. Moreover, he didn't have any evil intentions in that incident. On the contrary, he had the intention to save them. However, from his conscience, as a fellow disciple, Lu Ping should have informed Hu Lily and the other two in advance. Fortunately, the green sea snake came to disturb the situation, and Hu Lily and the other two retreated. Lu Ping didn't have to bear a greater burden in his heart and only needed to redeem the small amount of guilt in his heart. Moreover, Hu Lily didn't have any evidence that Lu Ping was there. Otherwise, he wouldn't have survived the attack of the green sea snake. She could only assume that Lu Ping noticed the abnormality in the sea near Huangli Island and went to investigate. The most important point was that no one knew or believed that the green sea snake died that day, and that it was killed by Lu Ping. Everyone, including Qiao Shiping, thought that the green sea snake that Qiao Shiping was chasing was the one on the reef island. Jinling was to the north of Xianqi Island, so the sealing formation must have been set up in the northern part of the island. Hu Lily and the other three took the invisibility talisman given by Lu Ping and hid on a reef island not far away, looking at Xianqi Island from afar, waiting for the appointed time to arrive. According to the agreement, Lu Ping would send a sound transmission sword to Xianqi Island within half an hour of the appointed time, informing the cultivators on the island of their plan in detail. When the time came, Xianling Sect's attention would be diverted by Lu Ping's sound transmission sword. When the cultivators on the island were sent out to encircle the island, the cultivators on the island would launch an attack to mislead Xianling Sect into thinking that the cultivators on Xianqi Island were trying to break out of their encirclement. This would create an opportunity for Hu Lily and the other three. At this time, Xianqi Island was surrounded by a deep blue protective formation. The Xianling Sect cultivators outside the island attacked the formation with all kinds of mystic artifacts, while the cultivators on the island relied on the formation, using their mystic artifacts to block the Xianling Sect cultivators' attacks. At the same time, they hoped to inflict some damage to the Xianling Sect cultivators. For a time, all kinds of mystic artifacts danced in the sky above Xianqi Island, making it look like an exhibition of mystic artifacts. From low-grade to top-grade mystic artifacts, Hu Lily and the others had a feast for their eyes. At the same time, from time to time, monstrous waves would surge up from the sea for no reason and smash down on the island's protective formation. Or, a huge rock would suddenly appear in midair, like a meteorite falling towards the formation. Or, a huge fireball, like a meteor falling from the sky, would draw a bright light in the air and rush towards the island's protective formation. Every time this happened, a spell or the projection of a giant mystic artifact would rise from Xianqi Island, blocking the spell or the projection of Xianling's sex spell or mystic artifact outside the island's protective formation. This was a battle between core forging enlightened masters, who Lily and the others were dazzled by the spectacle. However, Xianling's sect's core forging enlightened masters had the advantage in numbers. Therefore, the core forging enlightened masters on Xianqi Island couldn't block the attacks in time. Every time the attacks landed on the island's protective array formation, the dark blue array formation would shake violently. It was as if the entire Xianqi Island was shaking, causing Hu Lily and the others to be alarmed. Suddenly, a golden light flashed from the west at lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, it pierced through Xianqi Island's protective array formation, causing the Xianling sect cultivators to exclaim in shock. The core forging enlightened masters of Xianling sect also stopped their attacks, as if they were discussing something. Sure enough, after a while, 5 cultivators separated from Xianling sect's attacking team and flew in the direction of the sound-transmitting magic swords. Another 2 sound-transmitting magic swords were sent from Xianling sect's team, one to the south and the other to the northwest. They were probably notifying the 2 search teams. Their chance had come. Hu Lily and the others suddenly felt an inexplicable excitement. At the same time, they looked at the direction in which Xianling sect's team was going after Lu Ping. In the blink of an eye, another hour passed. Nothing unexpected happened between the 2 sides, and they continued to practice according to their previous rhythm. The only difference was that Xianling sect's blood condensation realm cultivators seemed to have weakened a little. Suddenly, a long laugh came from Xianqi Island. Feng Shutao, you old dog, you and your bunch of shrimp soldiers and crab generals have been putting on a show for the past 3 to 4 days. It's really boring. Maybe I'll go out and teach you a lesson. One of the Xianling sect's group, a skinny old man in a cloak, sneered. I was wondering which bastard Jinling sect hid on Xianqi Island, but I didn't expect it to be you, Jiang Xianlin. How disappointing. Another fiery voice came from Xianqi Island. There's no point in talking. Let's fight. It was Xianqi Island's enlightened master, Chu Xianlin. A cultivator beside Xianling sect's Feng Shutao said, Chu Xuanqing, you old fart. Today, you will die without a burial place. Another voice came from the island. Enlightened Master Xu Shui, you're too arrogant. Don't be so arrogant and slap your own face. Hu Lily and the others were familiar with this voice. It was Zhenling Side Hall's enlightened Master Xin Yong. As expected, a woman's voice came from Xianling sect. Old man Xin Yong, why didn't you teach in Jinling? Are you tired of living? At this time, Xianqi Island's enlightened master, Jiang Xianlin, who spoke first, shouted, in that case, let's fight. As soon as he finished speaking, 5 gigantic projections of mystic artifacts rose from Xianqi Island. Under the protection of the mystic artifacts, the 5 enlightened masters flew out of the island's protective formation. On Xianling sect's side, 7 enlightened masters soared into the sky and charged at the 5 enlightened masters of Jinling. At this time, another group of cultivators charged out of Xianqi Island, heading towards the northern side. The one leading them was Master Immortal Lu. Wielding a high-grade mystic artifact, the Xian Flower Axe, he brandished it with the force of splitting mountains and rivers. Clearly, he had also comprehended the realm of force. The 2 Xianling late blood condensation cultivators in front of him were forced to retreat. The cultivators behind Master Immortal Lu also advanced with all their might. Xianling sect's Feng Shutao laughed. Jiang Xianlin, do you think I didn't see through your Jinling's tricks? The old man is tired of these old diversionary tactics. Not good. There's someone at the ceiling formation. Feng Shutao suddenly realized something, but it was too late. He saw a short spear flashing with golden light outside the ceiling spell formation on the north side of Xianqi Island. It pierced towards the ceiling spell formation, and at the same time, a few inconspicuous magic treasures followed the short spear and attacked the various joints of the spell formation. With a cracking sound, the magic array that sealed the teleportation portal was broken. The enlightened masters and Master Immortal Lu knew that enlightened Master Chu wanted to take Yao Yong as his disciple, but they didn't say anything. They just looked at Yao Yong, who didn't know what to do. At this time, Lu Ping was at the juncture of life and death. Lu Ping was hiding on a small coral reef island 50 miles west of Xianqi Island. Since Xianqi Island's defensive array formation had been activated, Lu Ping could only use the sound-transmitting sword from a short distance to the island without being intercepted by Xianling sect's core forging enlightened masters. Lu Ping recorded his plan in the sound-transmitting sword and injected enough arcane energy into it. After activating it, Lu Ping watched as the sound-transmitting sword flew towards Xianqi Island at high speed. Then, he turned around and flew towards the west. Just as Lu Ping was about 5 miles away, he saw a sound-transmitting sword flying towards the northwest. Lu Ping knew that it must be Xianling sect's cultivators who had notified the other teams that were searching for them. However, what Lu Ping didn't know was that there were 3 teams of 15 cultivators, led by 3 late blood condensation cultivators, heading in his direction. The cultivators from Xianqi Island chased after Lu Ping. The cultivators from the northwest turned south, and the cultivators from the south turned northwest. Lu Ping had to face 3 teams of cultivators on the west side of Xianqi Island. Just as Lu Ping saw Xianling sect's sound-transmitting sword flying northwest, he wondered if he should change his direction. Then, he saw 2 cultivators wearing Xianling sect's robes hovering in the air a few miles away from him. The vast sea was unobstructed. On a clear day, one could see the sea for miles, let alone cultivators with arcane energy. When the 2 Xianling sect cultivators saw Lu Ping, they smiled and said, "We were supposed to hunt down Jinling's blood condensation cultivator, but we ran into a fish that slipped through the net. Looks like we have to kill a chicken with a butcher's knife." Lu Ping saw the 2 cultivators' arcane energy surging around them, and there was a faint aura of essence hovering above their heads. He knew that these 2 were mid-blood condensation cultivators. His heart skipped a beat. It seemed like Xianling sect had changed their method of searching. They were no longer searching in groups of 5. Things were just as Lu Ping expected. After Xianling sect's search team narrowed down to the west side of Xianqi Island, each team was split up. The late blood condensation cultivator leading the team formed 1 team, while the other 4 mid-blood condensation cultivators formed 2 teams. Xianling sect was confident that even if the 2 mid-blood condensation cultivators couldn't defeat Jinling's late blood condensation cultivator, they could still hold him off until the other cultivators arrived. The 2 Xianling sect 5th layer blood condensation cultivators were lucky, but they didn't know that the 1st layer blood condensation cultivator in front of them was the late blood condensation cultivator that Xianling sect thought was Jinling's late blood condensation cultivator. Including the 2 cultivators who lost their arcane energy, Xianling sect had lost a total of 10 first and 2nd layer blood condensation cultivators. 6 of them died in Lu Ping's hands. Lu Ping saw the 2 cultivators in front of him, and without a word, he summoned a wave from the sea, turning it into 2 water pythons that shot towards the 2 Xianling sect cultivators. One of the Xianling sect cultivators snorted coldly. Child's play. With a wave of his sleeve, a gust of wind brushed past Lu Ping's 2 water pythons, turning them into a shower of water. Just as the cultivator was about to pull his sleeve back, Lu Ping's flying swallow sword was already slashing towards him. A loud puff sound was heard, followed by another chila sound. The flying swallow sword was pulled back by the cultivator's sleeve. Lu Ping felt as if his flying swallow sword had pierced through layers of cotton that couldn't withstand any force. Just as he felt a stifling sensation, his flying swallow sword was tossed back to him. Lu Ping didn't know that the cultivator in front of him was even more shocked than Lu Ping. Looking at the 2-inch hole in his sleeve, the cultivator was enraged. This mid-grade mystic artifact sleeve was forged with a lot of effort, and it was very compatible with his cultivation technique. Normally, he wouldn't have any opponents in the same realm as him, but now, it was cut by a mere 1st layer blood condensation cultivator. Not only did he lose a large sum of spirit stones to repair the mystic artifact, he would also be laughed at by his fellow cultivators in the future. Just as the cultivator was about to vent his anger on Lu Ping, he suddenly realized that Lu Ping had already turned around and fled towards the north. Just as the 2 cultivators were about to chase after him, Lu Ping took out a talisman and slapped it on his body. In an instant, Lu Ping turned into a stream of light and flew towards the north, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Chapter 78. The cultivator whose sleeve was cut by Lu Ping said angrily, "That brat ran away so fast." The other cultivator also didn't expect Lu Ping to suddenly run away. If he knew this was going to happen, he wouldn't have held back his pride. Hence, he sneered and said, "Run? Where can he run to? I've already sent out a message. Senior Marshal Brother Hu and Junior Marshal Brother Zheng are already on their way to intercept him." Lu Ping had already made up his mind when he saw the two Xianling sect cultivators. As soon as they exchanged blows, Lu Ping discovered that the cultivator who fought him was a fifth-layer blood condensation realm cultivator. If it was any other day, he might have to fight him. Even if he couldn't win, he was confident he could escape. Unfortunately, there was another cultivator who was as strong as this first cultivator and was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. If Lu Ping delayed any longer, not only would the cultivator next to him make a move, but the other Xianling cultivators would also arrive. Hence, Lu Ping decisively used a water escape charm he crafted and fled to the north. The south was Xianling sect's territory. There were cultivators chasing him from behind and in front of him. His only choice was to escape to the north, even if the north was also unpredictable. This water escape talisman could last for about half an incense stick's time. However, after Lu Ping escaped for a few dozen li, he suddenly felt a sword slash towards him. A voice laughed. "Where are you running to? Come out." Lu Ping's water escape talisman was interrupted. He jumped out of the sea and saw a fourth-layer blood condensation realm cultivator in front of him. Not far from this cultivator, another Xianling cultivator was looking at Lu Ping with an expressionless face. Lu Ping's divine sense was blocked by an even stronger divine sense. Lu Ping was shocked. He knew this was a cultivator, even more terrifying than the one in front of him. The pale-faced cultivator was young, about the same age as Lu Ping, but his fourth-layer blood condensation realm cultivation told Lu Ping that he was a genius. The pale-faced cultivator obviously treated Lu Ping as an opponent to practice his swordsmanship. His first move was the Merry Wind 18 Swords. Every move was elegant and graceful, but also abnormally fast, aiming straight for the opponent's vitals. It was as if a gentle breeze was swirling in the air, unpredictable and yet omnipresent. The cheerful sword style brought about a gentle whistling of the wind as it danced in the air. It was as if a happy fairy was singing an ethereal song in the sky. The breeze in the sky gathered around his sword style. This was the realm of the wind-type sword art, momentum. Lu Ping's face was solemn. This was Lu Ping's first time fighting a blood condensation cultivator who had comprehended the force realm. Wielding his goose feather swords, Lu Ping used raging waves to fight the pale-faced cultivator. Layers of saber waves surged endlessly like the waves of the sea. Although the wind was omnipresent, so was the water. At this moment, the two were in a stalemate. When the pale-faced cultivator saw Lu Ping using raging waves, his eyes lit up. He didn't expect to meet a cultivator who had also comprehended the force realm. This made the Xianling cultivator, who was initially dispirited, excited. The Xianling cultivator behind him was also surprised. After 7 to 8 moves, the pale-faced cultivator had the upper hand because his cultivation was higher than Lu Ping's. However, after 70 to 80 moves, the pale-faced cultivator still had the upper hand. Lu Ping was still unhurried as he continued to execute his swordplay. Only then did the pale-faced cultivator realize that this Zhenling sect's first-layer blood condensation realm cultivator's arcane energy was actually so strong. His cultivation was much higher than Yi Tianyun's, and he was attacking with all his might. But Yi Tianyun was still full of vigor and energy. Yi Tianyun's sword momentum was like a tidal wave, one wave after another. Yi Tianyun's sword momentum pushed against the pale-faced cultivator's sword momentum endlessly. Could it be that he wasn't using his full strength? The pale-faced cultivator couldn't believe his eyes. At this moment, Lu Ping's swordplay suddenly changed. It was as if a gust of wind had appeared on the raging waves of the sea. The water borrowed the force of the wind, and the wind fueled the waves. Lu Ping's twin sabers created a huge wave that surged towards the pale-faced cultivator. Borrowing force. The Xinling sect cultivator behind the pale-faced cultivator exclaimed. When the pale-faced cultivator heard the exclamation, his face turned even paler. Paler. The tables were turned in an instant. The pale-faced cultivator, who had the upper hand, was suddenly suppressed by the waves of sabers created by Lu Ping. He was only left with the strength to defend himself. However, the pale-faced cultivator had a high cultivation. Even though he was at a disadvantage, he wasn't someone Lu Ping could defeat in a short period of time. Not to mention, there was a Xinling sect cultivator with a higher cultivation beside him. At this moment, the Xinling sect cultivator seemed to have lost his patience. He flicked his right thumb and middle finger, and a ball of seawater leaped up from the surface of the sea. In an instant, the ball of seawater transformed into a crystal-clear triangular spike that shone with a cold gleam. The spike flew straight towards Lu Ping's throat. The triangular thorn was still a few feet away, but Lu Ping already felt an eerie chill piercing his throat. Lu Ping let out a strange cry and threw out two talismans, which turned into two water shields in front of Lu Ping. At the same time, he jumped into the sea and slapped a water escape talisman on his body. Once again, he turned into a ball of water and fled towards the northwest. The triangular thorn was blocked by the two water shields. By the time it shattered the water shields, Lu Ping had already made his escape. The pale-faced cultivator lost the battle, and he was in a bad mood. He said fiercely, "What a cunning kid! Do you only know how to run?" The ruthless cultivator glanced at him and said, "If you didn't insist on fighting him first, he wouldn't have left this place alive. But he won't be able to run far. Senior Marshal Brother Pang is already chasing after him. With Senior Marshal Brother Pang's cultivation and speed, it doesn't matter how many water escape talismans this guy has." Hearing the ruthless cultivator's words, the pale-faced cultivator calmed down a lot. He said, "That's true." Lu Ping still didn't know that the biggest test of his life was already waiting for him halfway. Lu Ping seemed to have made some progress in his sword battle with the pale-faced cultivator. For a moment, he forgot to escape and was immersed in comprehending his sword skills. It was only when the ruthless cultivator attacked that Lu Ping snapped out of his daze and fled. If it weren't for his opponent's arrogance, he would have lost a layer of skin even if he managed to escape. An imposing aura suddenly erupted in front of Lu Ping. The seawater in front of Lu Ping seemed to have frozen. Helpless, Lu Ping had no choice but to stop using the water escape talisman again and jumped out of the sea. He saw a Xinling sect cultivator standing in front of him with his hands clasped behind his back. This cultivator's eyes were filled with surprise. He seemed to be wondering how a first-layer blood condensation cultivator like Lu Ping could escape from his 4 junior martial brothers. At this moment, Lu Ping's eyes were filled with horror. His divine sense swept across the cultivator's head, and he saw a straight stream of essence chi shooting into the sky above the cultivator's head. Essence chi wolf smoke. This was the essence chi wolf smoke that only a late blood condensation cultivator could condense with their powerful bloodline's spiritual energy. At this moment, Lu Ping was doomed. Chapter 79. Lu Ping didn't say a word and continued to run. This time, he didn't even have the courage to fight. Lu Ping had been intercepted 3 times along the way. He felt that if he were to fight against a 4th-layer blood condensation cultivator, he would lose to a 5th-layer blood condensation cultivator, but he would still be able to escape unscathed. However, when the pale-faced cultivator attacked, Lu Ping already felt that he couldn't fight against a 6th-layer blood condensation cultivator. Now that the pale-faced cultivator was facing a late blood condensation cultivator, Lu Ping knew that he could only run. Once he attacked, he would die. Lu Ping hoped that he could hold out for an hour. As long as the hour passed, the siege on Xianqi Island would be resolved, and he would be saved. However, when Lu Ping finished using his water escape talisman, Lu Ping jumped out of the water and saw a figure behind him. The figure still had his hands clasped behind his back, treading on the waves and following closely behind him. When the figure saw Lu Ping, he turned around and smiled at him. Lu Ping's hair stood on end. This guy could actually keep up with the speed of the water escape talisman. Lu Ping jumped into the water again and slapped his last water escape talisman on himself. When he stopped a few dozen li away, the late blood condensation Xianling sect cultivator was still following him. Lu Ping forced himself to calm down and slapped a blood-red talisman on himself. It was the blood escape talisman that Zhongjian gave him before. Lu Ping turned into a streak of blood-red light and continued to run. The Xianling sect cultivator finally frowned. Suddenly, a wild goose appeared under his feet. This wild goose was at the blood condensation realm. It was obviously a spirit beast reared by the cultivator. The wild goose let out a long cry and flapped its wings, carrying the cultivator in the direction Lu Ping escaped. In an instant, they disappeared into the horizon. This time, Lu Ping managed to escape nearly 100 miles away. The power of this blood escape talisman was clearly much better than the water escape talisman that Lu Ping made himself. Lu Ping looked behind him again and saw that the sea was empty. Just as he heaved a sigh of relief, he suddenly heard a clear and melodious chirp coming from the sky a few miles away. A large wild goose was flying towards him, and the cultivator sitting on it was none other than a Xianling sect cultivator. Lu Ping cursed inwardly. He clenched his right hand into a fist and smashed it against his chest. He spat out a mouthful of blood and turned into a streak of blood-red light again, fleeing toward the west. This was the first time Lu Ping used the blood escape secret art after reaching the blood condensation realm. A secret art in the blood condensation realm was clearly 100 times more powerful than when he was in the blood refining realm. When Lu Ping stopped, the Xianling late blood condensation realm cultivator was nowhere to be seen. This time, Lu Ping could finally heave a sigh of relief. However, regardless of whether it was the water escape talisman, blood escape talisman, or his own blood escape secret art, he didn't change his direction. If the Xianling sect cultivator continued to chase after him, it would be difficult for him to escape. Thus, Lu Ping made up his mind. Ignoring his injuries, he spat out another mouthful of blood and used the blood escape secret art again. This time, he changed his direction. When Lu Ping stopped again, he was already in an unfamiliar sea. By this time, Lu Ping's injuries had worsened. This was the first time Lu Ping had suffered such serious injuries since he became a cultivator. Moreover, he had injured himself while being chased by someone else. Still, he could be proud of himself for escaping from a late blood condensation realm cultivator. The Xianling sect cultivator rode on a wild goose and chased after Lu Ping for more than 100 li. However, there was still no sign of Lu Ping. Unwilling to give up, the Xianling sect cultivator searched the surrounding sea for another 10 li, but he still couldn't find Lu Ping. Only then did he confirm that Lu Ping had escaped from his grasp. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. This time, he let a first-layer blood condensation kit escape. What a disgrace. Just as he was thinking about how to explain this to the elders of the sect and how to avoid being laughed at by his peers, the Xianling sect cultivator suddenly saw a sound transmission sword flying towards him from the horizon. The Xianling sect cultivator caught the sword and listened to its message. Suddenly, his expression changed. The siege on Xianxi Island had been broken. Jinling had already sent reinforcements through the teleportation array. Xianling's sect's attack on Xianxi Island had failed. Damn it, a few early blood condensation brats ruined my plan. I'm about to retreat to Xianling's sect's territory in the south. If I run into Jinling's core forging realm cultivator and get killed in a bad mood, I'll be in big trouble. Even though there was a rule in the cultivation world that a core forging realm enlightened master was not allowed to attack a blood condensation realm cultivator, this was the desolate sea. If I died, who would hold the enlightened master accountable? Furthermore, if I retreated now, I would have the excuse that I didn't complete my mission. While the Xianling sect disciples retreated, Lu Ping was currently recuperating on a coral reef in the sea. Fortunately, Lu Ping had always been prepared. He had brought some high-quality healing pills with him. These pills, which he had spent a large amount of spirit stones on, were indeed effective. They immediately suppressed Lu Ping's internal injuries. However, Lu Ping had used the blood escape art this time. Not only did he lose a lot of blood, but his vitality was also damaged. Without a month or two of recuperation, it would be impossible for him to fully recover. Just as Lu Ping was quietly circulating the sea wave listening art to absorb the 2 mid-grade spirit stones in his hands and slowly combining them with the medicinal efficacy of the pills to treat his internal injuries, a powerful divine sense suddenly swept across the sky from afar. It paused for a moment on Lu Ping's body, and a gentle voice suddenly sounded in Lu Ping's ear. "Little guy, so you're here." Shocked, Lu Ping threw away the spirit stones in his hand and prepared to use the blood escape art again to escape. The voice laughed and said, "Little guy, don't be nervous. I'm your junior uncle." Only then did Lu Ping realize that only a core forging enlightened master could have such a powerful divine sense. If it was a Xianling sect cultivator, he would have been dead long ago. Lu Ping calmed himself down and stood on the coral reef, waiting for the arrival of this enlightened master. A gentle breeze blew past, and Lu Ping's vision blurred. In the next moment, he saw a middle-aged man with a long beard standing in front of him. "You're Lu Ping? My name is Jiang Xianlin." Enlightened Master Jiang Xianlin looked at the young cultivator with interest. There were injuries on his body, which were the side effects of using a secret technique. To be able to escape the pursuit of Xianling sect's mid and late blood condensation realm cultivators, he must have some secret techniques. Lu Ping greets Enlightened Master. "May I know if the siege on Xianqi Island has been resolved? How are my companions?" Lu Ping asked anxiously. Enlightened Master Jiang smiled appreciatively and said, "The siege on Xianqi Island has been resolved. Your companions are safe and sound. The blood-refining realm disciples stationed on the island have also returned to Xianqi Island. Xianling sect has already retreated to the south." Chapter 80. By the time Lu Ping told Enlightened Jiang about his experience of being hunted down on the sea, Enlightened Jiang had already brought Lu Ping back to Xianqi Island. Lu Ping was once again amazed at the core forging Enlightened Master's power. He had spent an hour, 5 talismans, and 2 secret techniques to escape, but Enlightened Jiang had returned in the time it took him to finish his story. After returning to Xianqi Island, Master Immortal Lu arranged for Lu Ping to go into seclusion to recuperate. For the next 2 months, Lu Ping spent all his time in seclusion. During this time, Yao Yong and the other disciples of Group 7 all came to visit, but their 7th senior apprentice brother was missing. He had died in Xianling sect's purge. Everyone talked about the peaceful life in the monastery and their 7th senior apprentice brother's death. Even Li Cheng, who had always been at odds with Lu Ping, was silent. Fortunately, Lingling noticed the awkward atmosphere and quickly mentioned that the sect was going to reward Lu Ping and the other 4 disciples for their contribution in resolving the siege on Xianqi Island. Only then did everyone start to guess the contents of the reward. Hu Lili and Zhong Jian also came to visit Lu Ping. Zhong Jian even brought his girlfriend, Ma Yu. Ma Yu was at the 2nd level of the blood condensation realm and was one of the top disciples in Lu Ping's previous batch. Lu Ping joked with Zhong Jian that he had to work harder, otherwise he would be left behind by his senior apprentice sister Ma Yu. Wouldn't that be embarrassing? After being teased by Lu Ping and the others, Zhong Jian was no longer as thick-skinned as before. He just laughed and said there was no problem. On the other hand, Ma Yu's face turned red from Lu Ping's teasing. Hu Lili told Lu Ping about the situation between Xianling sect and Jinling. After Xianling sect retreated, the 2 sects started fighting on the border. Every day, there would be cultivators fighting on the sea. From time to time, there would be news of cultivators dying. But in general, both sides were restrained, and there were no more battles between core forging enlightened masters. Of course, it was also possible that both sides had deeper plans, but this was something that Lu Ping and the others had to consider. Lu Ping asked Hu Lili about the casualties. As expected, Hu Lili paid attention to these things. She said that Jinling had lost over 50 blood condensation cultivators, and Xianling had lost over 70. Other than that, all the resource points near Xianqi Island, as well as the smaller islands under their jurisdiction, had all been looted. They had lost quite a lot of spirit stones. Lu Ping asked Hu Lili about the demon race's appearance in Xianqi Island sea region to the sect's elders. This was originally Lu Ping's discovery, but Lu Ping had always felt guilty towards Hu Lili for obtaining Sheng Tao's inheritance. Therefore, he asked her to report her discovery to the sect's elders. Coupled with Hu Lili's insightful grasp of the situation, he hoped that she would be able to attract the attention of the sect's elders. In fact, Lu Ping only took a month to recover from his injuries. As the biggest contributor to the rescue of Xianqi Island, after Lu Ping returned, he was rewarded with the best healing pills by the sect. The reason why he stayed on Xianqi Island was because Lu Ping's cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds after the battle. In addition, in the year since he broke through to the blood condensation realm, Lu Ping had been consuming all sorts of pills for his cultivation. Currently, Lu Ping had reached the bottleneck of the first level of the blood condensation realm, and he would break through to the second level at any time. After Lu Ping recovered, Yao Yong, Hu Lili, and the rest invited Lu Ping to visit him again. This time, the sect had already given them a reward. After Hu Lili reported the situation with the Yao clan, she received the sect's attention. At the same time, she was told to keep it strictly confidential. The sect rewarded her with 3,000 spirit stones and promised to give her 2 blood condensation pills to help her break through to the blood condensation realm. After visiting Lu Ping, she would go into seclusion to break through to the blood condensation realm. Naturally, everyone congratulated her for breaking through to the blood condensation realm. Lu Ping even gave Hu Lili 2 bottles of blood vigor pills as a gift, which naturally made them envious. Zhong Jian received 3,000 spirit stones, 2 bottles of blood condensation pills, a mid-grade earth-type flying sword, and a top-grade blood escape talisman. The talisman was used to make up for his losses. He only joined the expedition after being rescued by Lu Ping and the others. Hence, he didn't get much credit, but the rewards he received were enough to make the other disciples in the same realm envious. Du Feng's reward was also 3,000 spirit stones, 2 bottles of blood condensation pills, and a high-grade flying swan sword. This flying swan sword was of high quality, and it was said that it could be improved further. Among the group, Yao Yong was the luckiest. Other than the 3,000 spirit stones, 2 bottles of blood condensation pills, and a high-grade scarlet tiger sword, he also received enlightened Master Chu's recognition and was accepted as an in-name disciple. Once he broke through to the mid-blood condensation realm, he would officially become enlightened Master Chu's disciple. Even now, he could receive enlightened Master Chu's guidance frequently, which would definitely speed up his cultivation. Among the 5 of them, the one who contributed the most was Lu Ping. Lu Ping could be said to have gained nothing from this mission. Instead, he was chased for hundreds of miles. He had to use more than half of his blood condensation talismans and talisman treasures to destroy the ceiling formation, and he almost lost his life. In the end, he was heavily injured. It was said that enlightened Master Xian Yong and enlightened Master Jiang Xianlin had expressed their hope that the sect would reward Lu Ping handsomely. The cultivators on Xianqi Island all owed Lu Ping a favor this time, so the sect naturally had to consider it seriously. In the end, the reward was 5,000 spirit stones, 3 bottles of blood condensation pills, an intact first-layer core forging talisman, and 3 items of his choice from the Tianling Mountains blood condensation treasure vault. Such a reward was enough to make a late blood condensation cultivator's eyes go red. However, enlightened Master Jiang Xianlin still grumbled. Only 3 items? What good stuff is there in the blood condensation treasure vault? Lu Ping didn't know what the blood condensation treasure vault was, so Hu Lili explained to him. Every sect had their own treasure vault to store cultivation resources. The blood condensation treasure vault was one of Jinling's treasure vaults. However, the items in this vault were usually used by blood condensation cultivators, so it was called the blood condensation treasure vault. As for enlightened Master Jiang Xuanlin's explanation, Lu Ping didn't mind it. The blood condensation treasure vault was naturally nothing in enlightened Master Jiang's eyes. If he really gave Lu Ping some heavenly treasures, Lu Ping probably wouldn't be able to keep them. Lowering the standard of the reward and diluting the attention of the cultivators on Lu Ping was actually a kind of protection for Lu Ping's growth. These rewards could only be claimed after Lu Ping recovered from his injuries and came out of seclusion. Lu Ping wasn't in a hurry. The most important thing right now was to break through to the second layer of the blood condensation realm. This incident on Xianqi Island once again showed Lu Ping the cruelty of the cultivation world and the helplessness of his low cultivation. This also strengthened Lu Ping's determination and courage to climb to the peak of the cultivation world. There was an intact talisman talisman with a seal that contained a golden core stage spell called Flame Fan. The blood condensation mountain was Condensed Blood Mountain, Lu Ping's still Lu Condensation Mountain. This was Lu Ping's second time coming to Condensed Blood Mountain. This time, Lu Ping came alone. As he greedily breathed in the dense spiritual energy of Condensed Blood Mountain, Lu Ping thought to himself that he should move the 2 mini spirit veins to his cave abode on Huangli Island as soon as possible. Otherwise, his cultivation speed would inevitably be surpassed by his senior and junior brothers on Condensed Blood Mountain. The Blood Condensation Mountain was built halfway up the mountain not far from the Heaven Spirit Hall. It was clear that the sect attached great importance to this place. Lu Ping handed over the certificate issued by the sect to a late blood condensation cultivator guarding the treasury. This cultivator had obviously received the sect's notice as well. He looked at Lu Ping with interest before bringing Lu Ping to the treasury. The treasury was covered by a complicated array lock. When Lu Ping used his divine sense to probe inside, he discovered that there were thousands of twists and turns inside. Lu Ping almost got lost in the array lock. With great difficulty, he finally broke free from the array lock's influence. Shaking his slightly dizzy head, Lu Ping noticed that a few other late blood condensation cultivators had appeared out of nowhere. Each of them was holding a key-shaped magic artifact, and they were working together to open the treasury's door. Only Lu Ping was allowed to enter the treasury. When Lu Ping walked into the treasury, an astonishing divine sense suddenly enveloped Lu Ping's body. Lu Ping, who had experienced this before, was speechless. The person guarding the blood condensation mountain was a core forging enlightened master. The blood condensation mountain was a huge cave on the mountainside. The stone walls were inlaid with many night pearls, making the interior of the treasury very bright. As Lu Ping walked into the treasury, he was stunned by the huge amount of resources inside. There wasn't a single piece of, or on the shelves. There were only storage bags with labels on them, indicating what kind of or was inside. Lu Ping took out an interspatial pouch labeled Mystic Iron and opened it. There were more than 100 pieces of mystic iron inside, and there were also a few hundred interspatial pouches here. Almost all the spirit ores that could be used by blood condensation realm cultivators were stored in these interspatial pouches. There were also the spiritual herbs section, the pills section, the magic artifacts section, the talisman section, the array board section, the spirit beast egg section, the secret treasures section, the spiritual materials section, and so on. Each section was further divided into smaller sections. For example, the pills section was divided into the cultivation section, the healing section, the spiritual recovery section, the miscellaneous section, and so on. The cultivation section was further divided into the early, middle, and later sections, and the bottleneck breakthrough section. After that, the specific pills were listed. Everything in the blood condensation mountain treasury was an eye-opener for Lu Ping. He finally understood the wealth of a sect with tens of thousands of years of history like Xinling. And this was only the blood condensation mountain treasury. Then, would there be a pill forging storehouse, Dharma image storehouse, and so on? If there were, what would they look like inside? In the North Sea, Xinling sect was the strongest and wealthiest sect. Then, what would Xinling sect's treasury look like? At this moment, Lu Ping was filled with yearning for these treasures. Lu Ping paced back and forth in the blood condensation mountain treasury, not knowing where to start. When Lu Ping finally calmed down, he realized that he had already been in the treasury for 2 hours, but the senior disciple guarding the treasury only gave him 6 hours. Initially, Lu Ping was wondering why it took so long, but now, Lu Ping felt that the time was too short. Lu Ping thought about his needs. First, he went to the ore section. He had only met Chen Lian twice, but he kept mentioning the deep-sea frigid iron. Besides, Lu Ping wanted to see the power of landslide after it was forged into a top-grade mystic instrument. So, among the hundreds of storage bags filled with spiritual ores, Lu Ping first found the shelf for iron ores. Then, on the third shelf, he saw the metal and water elemental storage bags, and finally, he found the storage bag for the deep-sea frigid iron. Finally, he chose the largest piece of frigid iron and placed it in the storage bag specially prepared for him when he entered the treasury. Next, Lu Ping wanted to find a secret technique to cultivate the divine sense. Firstly, it was necessary for concocting pills. Secondly, Lu Ping's divine sense was already very talented. Lu Ping only hoped to strengthen this advantage further. In fact, there was a secret technique to cultivate the divine sense in Shang Tao's pill scripture. Pill master Shang Tao believed that a strong divine sense would help in concocting pills, so why wouldn't he look for secret techniques in this area? However, when Lu Ping saw this secret technique, he was extremely disappointed. The cultivation speed of this secret technique was too slow, and it could only be cultivated in the blood condensation realm. Lu Ping estimated that when he reached the 9th layer of the blood condensation realm, this secret technique would at most increase his divine senses detection range by 100 feet. Lu Ping didn't know which section of the secret technique to cultivate the divine sense belonged to in the manual. He could only look through the hundreds of storage bags one by one. After an hour, he finally found the storage bag containing the secret technique. This made Lu Ping think of Hu Lily. That girl was very knowledgeable. If she was here, with her help, he could save a lot of time. Chapter 82. There were dozens of jade scrolls in the interspatial pouch containing the divine sense cultivation techniques. Most of them were on par with the techniques recorded in the Shang Tao alchemy scripture, but Lu Ping wasn't satisfied with the slightly stronger ones. In the end, he only picked out 3 jade scrolls. The first one was called the Spirit Nurturing Art. It was a top-notch secret technique that could improve one's divine sense step by step. It didn't have many side effects. As long as one cultivated it step by step, it could strengthen one's divine sense by up to 1/3 before entering the core forging realm. The second one was called the Spirit Expanding Art. This secret technique required a type of pill called the Spirit Expanding Pill as a supplement. During the blood condensation realm, it could expand one's divine sense by up to 1/3. The third secret technique was called the Spirit Splitting Art. This secret technique sounded terrifying, but it was actually a high-level secret technique used to repair damaged divine sense. When a cultivator's divine sense was damaged, this secret technique could be used to repair the lost divine sense in a short period of time. Later, this secret technique was transformed by a cultivator into a secret technique to strengthen the divine sense. However, there were 2 difficulties with this secret technique. One was to cut off a small part of the divine sense, which was an unbearable pain for ordinary people. After repairing the divine sense through the soul-splitting technique, one had to cut off a part of the divine sense and endure this pain repeatedly until the cut-off part of the divine sense had accumulated to more than half of the original divine sense. The second was to use a kind of mystic middle-grade spirit treasure soul wood as a container to store the cut-off part of the divine sense in the soul wood. When the accumulated divine sense was close to the original divine sense, it would be returned to the original divine sense at one go. Since the 2 were originally of the same origin, they could be merged very well. This way, the divine sense could be increased by half to 3/4 out of thin air. However, the effects of this secret technique could only be seen when a cultivator was about to break through to the core forging realm. The entire blood condensation realm was the preparation stage for this secret technique. In fact, Lu Ping wanted all 3 secret techniques. Other than the first one, the other 2 couldn't be prepared in a short period of time, especially the mystic mid-grade soul nurturing wood. Spirit treasures were things that cultivators above the core forging realm coveted at all times. How could a blood condensation realm cultivator obtain them? In this case, Lu Ping could cultivate the first secret technique first. When he met the requirements for either of the 2 secret techniques, he could come back and find a way to obtain the corresponding secret technique. After making up his mind, Lu Ping chose the soul nurturing art without hesitation. Now, there was only one choice left. In fact, there were countless treasures in the blood condensation realm that could tempt a late blood condensation realm cultivator. However, most of them weren't of use to Lu Ping right now. What Lu Ping needed to do now was to choose the most suitable ones and use them to earn more for himself. For example, there were many top-grade magic tools in the blood condensation realm, but it would be difficult for late blood condensation realm cultivators to use them. Even with Lu Ping's profound energy, he would probably need to wait until he reached the 5th or 6th blood condensation realm. The last option put Lu Ping in a difficult position. He had 3 choices. The first was a blood condensation realm charms. The second was a book of alchemy notes for learning alchemy, which should also include a recipe, and the third was a mystic instrument. His flying swallow sword and goose feather saber were both feng shui mystic instruments, which didn't fit well with his pure water attribute, sea of view, sea of waves listening scripture. The flying swallow sword was a nimble flying sword, which didn't fit well with his stone-piercing sword art, which was a head-on sword skill. Furthermore, he lacked a good defensive mystic instrument. Because of this, Lu Ping had a headache. He didn't know which one to choose. It was as if all of them were very useful to him. After weighing the pros and cons, Lu Ping finally decided to choose a pure water attribute flying sword. He didn't need a talisman crafting manual right now. He only had a few types of blood condensation realm talismans, and the success rate of crafting them was still very low. It was better to wait until his talisman crafting skills were higher. He had already asked Master Immortally to look for the pill refinement manual. He believed that there would be news soon. Moreover, his current pill refinement skills were still too weak. There was no hurry. Lu Ping originally wanted to find a defensive magic tool, but Lu Ping couldn't resist the temptation of a flying sword. He decided to choose a flying sword. He found the flying sword item in the magic tool section, then went to the high-grade magic tool section. He carefully looked through the water attribute flying sword storage pouch and finally chose a pair of male and female swords. The male sword of this pair of flying swords was slightly bigger. When used alone, it was suitable for the stone-piercing sky sword technique. When used together, the power of the raging waves crashing shore sword technique would reach a whole new level. The only regret was that Lu Ping still had a hard time wielding this pair of high-grade flying swords. Even with his arcane energy, Lu Ping needed to reach the mid-stage of the blood condensation realm before he could fully unleash the power of this pair of flying swords. After choosing his reward, Lu Ping could finally relax. He could now take a closer look at the various treasures in the treasury. Every disciple of the Jinling sect who reached the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm was qualified to go out and train. At this time, the Master Immortal who taught them would give them 2 jade slips. One would record the things they encountered during their training, their cultivation experience, and their geography. The other would record the various cultivation resources they encountered during their training, as well as the geographical features of the places where these resources were found. However, for a disciple of Lu Ping's age, he didn't have much experience. Most of the knowledge he gained from the jade slips were from his experience. Now that there was a chance to see the real thing and broaden his horizons, how could Lu Ping miss it? Lu Ping first went to the spirit beast egg area and looked through the various spirit beasts. He was a little pleased when he didn't see any green sea snake eggs. Finally, there was something that the treasury didn't have. However, he forgot that if there were any green sea snake eggs, why would they be placed here? Then, he went to the area where the spirit herbs were stored. He looked at the spirit herbs that he didn't recognize through the labels on the storage pouch. At the same time, there were some simple descriptions of their effects. Naturally, this was a treasure that Lu Ping had obtained. There wasn't much time left. Lu Ping only had enough time to memorize the types of cultivation pills and their effects. Then, he heard the treasury opening again. The cultivators guarding the treasury were already urging Lu Ping to leave as soon as possible. Reluctantly, Lu Ping left the blood condensation treasury. After registering the 3 rewards he chose, he hurried back to Xianqi Island. At this time, Xianling sect and Jinling sect were still in a tense standoff in the sea. Every day, there would be blood condensation cultivators from both sides fighting each other. However, that was only the mid and late blood condensation cultivators' business. Early blood condensation cultivators were basically just giving gifts to Lu Ping. Hence, Liu Ping used this period of time to cultivate, craft talismans, practice his swordsmanship, study the spirit-nurturing technique, familiarize himself with the other techniques of the 8 techniques of raging waves, tease de Bao, look at the green sea snake eggs, or hide in the cultivation room to concoct a batch of pills. His days were comfortable, regular, and fulfilling. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.